really easy as a writer to get lazy if you don't have a deadline, and you should impose your own deadlines. I mean, that's often why when I'm doing a project, I'll publicly say this is happening now. Like the Kent State is going thing, which we'll talk about later, is going through a massive rewrite at the moment. And I know that rewrite's got to be ready by March because that's when we're going to start rehearsing.
All right, so today I'm joined by writer and director Lance Nielsen. Lance, how you doing, buddy?
Not too bad. Not sleeping too well like a lot of you, I would imagine. But I'm doing all right. Good excuse to put a shirt on today.
There you go. It's that lockdown life, ain't it? It's all kinds of things to juggle at once, and people, I think, sleep is one we're not giving much credence to. I know I've suffered from it too, so hopefully I'll get a good sleep tonight.
I don't know.
not on the Red Bull, to be fair. We can't see that. If people listening and not watching, there's Lance is going to be Red Bulling it throughout this, so he might.
I got up pretty late, and my sleeping patterns are all over the place, so I'm not going to be as focused as I'd like. But I shall do my best.
There you go. That's all we ever ask and want anyway. That's curious though, as a segue before we get into a bit about you. Because obviously, I said you're a writer. When you're writing, do you find that your sleep patterns and sort of your routine goes a little bit out of the window, or do you like to keep it compartmentalized? Like I read Stephen King's book about writing, and he said his process was that he carved out specific time every day in the morning. That's what works for him. Is it like that for you?
I think that works for a lot of writers. The first 4 hours that you write in any given period are always the best, because that's when you're freshest. But I don't have a specific time because my schedule varies from day to day, because I'm not just a writer, I'm a director. I do a bit of producing. Don't ask me to produce anything. I just end up doing some stuff for the Outcasts or this side.
Producing Necessary Evil, right?
Necessary Evil. I do a bit of acting sometimes as well, because I started off as an actor. Yeah. So I'm not a writer in the sense that that's the only thing I do, and I can therefore regiment my time. But I tend to do writing in blocks, week on, week off, or something like that. But I mean, I'll give you an idea. It was this time last year. A friend of mine contacted me and said, a producer friend of mine called Nicola Gregory, and absolutely wonderful human being. And she said, Lance, I really need a script. I need a Bollywood comedy. What you got? Because she knows I've got loads of scripts on my computer. And I said, I've got some comedies, but I don't have anything that would. Is there anything you can convert that would work to Bollywood? And I said, I don't think so. The one set in Italy is very Italian. And I said, when do you need it by? And she said, well, we've got a meeting on Wednesday. I've got to present 3 scripts. They're going to go into production in 2 weeks, something to do with a tax thing. And they're going to pick one of the scripts. And I said, right, so if I get you a script by Tuesday and you like it, you're telling me I've got a 1 in 3 chance of getting this job? And she said, yeah. And I said, okay, send this to me in an email. Give me an outline of what they're looking for. You'll have a script by Tuesday. And by Tuesday, she had a 96-page script, second draft. In fact, I worked her up 2 treatments within an hour. She liked them both. She picked one of them over the other. By Sunday afternoon, I was on page 60. By Monday morning, I finished the script. And this was all from a 1-line brief, which was essentially something along the lines of daughter takes over business from ailing father. That wasn't what I ended up doing, but I ended up doing kind of a version of Brewster's Millions. Do you remember Brewster's Millions? No. That movie with Richard Pryor and John Candy, where he has to spend all the money. No. I wrote a comedy about a guy who basically has to get married within 2 weeks, or he loses all his inheritance. And I thought that would work very well with the arranged marriage thing. Yeah. And he ends up he's going to marry his distant cousin, but he ends up falling in love with the cousin's half sister. It's kind of a comedy of errors. And they absolutely loved it. They said my script was the best, but they picked another one that had less locations.
Fair enough. There you go. Producing The Necessary Evil. Once again, it strikes. I find that fascinating though, because you're working to such a, that was the time frame and a deadline. Do you feel like having that deadline and that pressure helps you, or do you not really care about that and you can write?
No, it absolutely 100% helps me. It's really easy as a writer to get lazy if you don't have a deadline, and you should impose your own deadlines. I mean, that's often why when I'm doing a project, I'll publicly say this is happening
Oh,
now. Like the Kent State is going thing, which we'll talk about later, is going through a massive rewrite at the moment. And I know that rewrite's got to be ready by March because that's when we're going to start rehearsing. So, I mean, it's not going to be a problem. I've got the original script I'm working from, which I also wrote. So it's all a question of redrafting and remolding and reshaping this thing for a Zoom radio play. But it's still a huge job. But I know that I'll do it in time. And I've got a couple of other scripts for other people I'm sort of working on in between that as well. So
I like that. So if you don't have the deadline given to you by a producer or a contact who wants it, you give yourself your own deadline, and you don't just put it on your journal, you're putting it public. That accountability, I guess, is the trigger.
Yeah, that's more for my own work. I don't tend to say anything about the stuff I'm doing for other people unless they particularly want me to do some kind of social media. I did 3 or 4 freelance things during lockdown last year. Haven't been paid for any of them yet, but the 2 of them have been optioned, and they look quite promising. You know, and you kind of pick and choose what you think might go somewhere, what you think is worth your time.
Were they on spec, or were they off of a brief of some kind?
One of them was very much a collaboration with a pretty well-known British actor who's, I don't want to say who until we're a little bit further along, but he's done a lot of stuff. And me and him, he was in a play, and I went to see a play of a friend of mine, and his play was on in the other theatre. And I met him outside while he was having a pizza. And we have a lot of friends in common, so it was quite easy to approach him and say, oh, you know so-and-so. And we got talking about our favourite TV shows, and one of mine is The Shield, which is an American cop show, if you've ever seen it.
Is it Michael Chiklis? It is Chiklis.
Michael Chiklis played the lead. It also launched the career of Walton Goggins, of course, who's pretty much an A-list Hollywood star now. You've got CCH Pounder in there, who's one of my favourite actors of all time. If you read my recent blog, I wrote about her. Jade Carnes is in it. Fantastic cast. One of the best ensemble casts for a television show ever assembled, right up there with ER and shows like that. It's all about police corruption, and this actor said, "Oh, I'd love to do a role like Michael Chiklis's character in The Shield." And I said to him, "I've been dying to write something like The Shield, but making it as different from Line of Duty as possible, because you kind of have Line of Duty, which is about corruption and murky dealings in the police." Sure. So we sat down and we came up with, and I went away and I wrote an idea. I had an idea for a story with a great twist at the end of the pilot, and a great, even bigger twist at the end of the season. And I came back to him and said, "How about this?" And he loved it. And he then gave me a lot of kind of notes on what he wanted the character to be. And we weren't miles apart on that from each other. We were actually pretty, on the same tracks. And he was very specific that he wanted it to feel as real as it could be. So that was my starting point, and we went from there. And it's with the pilot's gone. Well, I don't want to say who it's gone to. It's gone to a pretty big production company. They like it, so we're waiting to get the green light. And if that happens, that's going to be great for me and my career. Which, not to mention that it will get me out of shit with the situation in lockdown and money and debt and all that.
Which double win across the board. Fingers crossed. Yeah. Do you find that it's easier to have an actor that you already know, well, just an actor, a person attached or involved, so when you're writing a character, you have a reference point, or do you think that's a hindrance for you because you might have constraints you wouldn't have otherwise, carte blanche?
No, absolutely wasn't a hindrance at all. I can do either. Sure. I can write characters completely from scratch, and as they form in my mind, and this is very much what I did with Diamonds in the Sky, which I know we'll come on to.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted the lead to be a single woman, a single mother in her late 30s, coming into her 40s, and I had a very specific image of that character in my mind, and it was the woman at the end of the film Castaway who meets Tom Hanks at the crossroads and gives him the directions. Mm-hmm. And that woman was played by an actress called Laurie White, who is more prominently known for being a country and western singer, and she's married to another singer called Chuck Cannon. And so when I was writing that character for Diamonds in the Sky, I visualized her, I heard her, and when you read the description of her, it is a description of Laurie White. And I actually contacted Laurie White and I asked her to be on the cover of the book, and I didn't know it at the time, really sad story, that she was battling cancer.
Oh.
And she died about 4 months after I wrote to her. So the second book in the series is dedicated to her. There's a big dedication to her. Amazing. In the front of the book, and I wrote to her husband and told him about how I'd visualized her as the character.
She was the inspiration for the character.
Yeah, and he wrote back to me, and he was really moved, and it was lovely to make that connection under very
tough circumstances,
but nice to be able to, as a stranger, complete stranger, and a creative, to reach out to a fellow creative and say, listen, I don't know if it means anything, but your wife inspired this character for this book, and
well, that's the power of art, right?
That's okay, and he was really chuffed, and
yeah.
And if it ever gets made into a TV show, we actually plan on using some of her music in the show. So
well, that's the power of art. That's the power of art, that someone in another part of the world that you've never met in person inspires your creativity, and then some way, somehow, it kind of keeps the memory and that person's legacy going, and
Yeah, look her up, Laurie White.
I remember, but I remember the woman from the movie.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Yeah, look her up. She's got a website with her music on it. She did this song called Bear. Listen to that song, man. It's so powerful, and I'm going to definitely use that song in a film somewhere. Absolutely. Regardless, I told Chuck that. I said, as soon as I can find the right place,
get the rights, and use it.
Yeah, we're going to be paying for the rights to use that song.
Amazing. Sure. Well, you mentioned obviously the novel, and the one that you the first one you did, which came out in 2017 for Diamonds in the Sky.
Funnily enough, here's one I made earlier.
Well, there you go. There's the Blue Peter moment.
Yeah. So that character who's modeled for me there by the wonderful actress Angela Dixon on the cover, that's the character that when I wrote the book, Laurie White was
the mom in Vegas doing a road trip, or like she's driving. Yeah.
Well, she's fleeing from a broken marriage and abusive husband. And she's on Highway 50, which is the loneliest road in America. And I actually Googled that. What is the loneliest road in America? Highway 50.
Sure.
And I found one of the loneliest stretches, which was just outside of Lake Tahoe, about 75 miles outside. And that's where I have a car breakdown.
What makes it so lonely? Is it just like the perimeter and the radius to the next nearest town? Or
yeah, it's a combination of factors like that, and that it's not particularly busy, and because I think there's a much more bigger 4-lane freeway that runs parallel. It's not that far away. But she's the first character you meet. It's a multi-perspective story about 8 people all over the world, and what happens to them in the first 72 hours of an invasion of is it an invasion? When 200 alien ships arrive, which look like this. Mm-hmm. And they drill down into the earth and the top part, and they look like these big diamonds that are these kind of spinning tops. The top part just sits there, and no one can get in them. Nothing comes out, but then things in the world start to change. And
if you want to know what happens, you go buy the book on Amazon.
And the second book is going to be out in a few weeks. We're just doing the cover now. It took me a long time to write the difficult second album for that, not because I didn't know what I was doing with it, because that was the first time I've ever written a novel, and I learned so much.
I was going to ask, that was going to be my question for you, Lance, because obviously we're talking about screenplays and you're writing for theater and screen, but a novel is a different kind of beast. Did you find the process any different, or was it more technical stuff around how you delivered the narrative and the dialogue?
I've used that exact phrase. It's a completely different kind of beast. Okay, so what I learned is you need to do a lot of planning, because you can write yourself into a hole. And it's in the same way with this. Look, I do a writing course every other month, and on the writing course, the main thing I teach is preparation and what people should do before they write a script. And I realised pretty quickly that I just needed to apply all my same rules to writing the book, and I needed to do a lot of planning so that I didn't write myself into a hole. But I wanted a bit of freedom as well, because with some of the characters, I didn't know them yet. I kind of knew. I got these 8 characters. They're all based on somebody I knew, which goes back to your previous question. I tend to sort of base people on either a look or a persona of someone I know, or a combination of personas, and then just inject your own thing.
Sure.
And most of the characters in the first book are based on sort of the look of them, based on fairly well-known actors or friends of mine.
Right.
But yeah, lots of planning. But the writing technique itself and finding your own style with writing a novel, I think, is something that evolves over time. I mean, I'm a completely different scriptwriter now to how I was 20 years ago. Completely different. And one of the things you learn to do is you get very harsh. If you're good, you get very harsh at self-editing, because you go through your scripts and you have to have that will to cut stuff down and put big red lines through. And trust me, if I don't do it, Jason Flemyng does it for me, because he reads all my scripts. And he was one of the first people to read the book, actually. I've got a great picture of him holding it. And with the first book, when I read it now, there's some bits I could have cut that out. But there was a lot of stuff that people were seeing for the first time. So in the second book, there isn't big, long descriptions of the spaceships, because everybody already knows what they look like.
Sure.
So it is a very different process. It was really challenging. It was a while when I wasn't sure if I was going to finish it. But to give you an idea, the first draft of the first book took me, I think it was 6 to 8 weeks, right. 2 months, something like that.
Yeah.
But from start to finish, it launched on February 2017, and I started it at the end of 2015, just planning it, and then I think I got into the meat of the writing in the summer of 2016, and I was trying to get it for Christmas 2016, and it wasn't ready, and then it had to go through proofreaders and all that stuff,
Sure. But it's the preparation bit is what I'm sort of interested to pull on a little bit, if we can, because obviously, I think people may think that it's just a case of sit at the keyboard and bash away, but unless you have that template or that structure, so when you're preparing, you're talking, I guess, about a few things. Number one would be the actual arc of the story, and the characters kind of already beat it out. But also, I guess, like you were saying about Route 50, doing the research that might be a deep dive that might take you away for hours about just one little thing, so you can be true to that in the book as well. So is that a lot of the work, or is there more preparation on top of that?
Well, I had a very, very specific template for these books, which in some ways has made my job a bit harder. There was going to be at least 8 characters. Every chapter is going to be divided into 3 segments. There was going to be 12 chapters in each book. Therefore, there were 36 segments. Therefore, in every book, I've got 36 segments to play with. And I don't know if I'm going to keep that religiously, because in the second book, one of the things that happened was I was determined to keep it under 400 pages, because then you only make about £1 a book on Amazon. You really don't make much money until you take off,
Sure.
So there was considerations like that I was thinking about, maybe with my producer's hat on, if you like. As a writer, I had these 8 characters storylines, and I kind of knew where I wanted all of them to get to by the end of the first book. So it was a question of, they're starting here, they're ending here, what's going to happen in between? Now, this is designed to be 6 books, and I can tell you now, I already know which 2 characters are in the very last scene and what happens in the very last scene. The ending, I haven't written it yet, but the ending was one of the things that was clearest in my head from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Which other characters are going to make it to that ending, I don't know. There are 2 characters in the first book that don't survive till the end. I wanted it to be like Game of Thrones, not literally, it's written in the same style because that's multi-character, but I didn't want you to be safe with anyone. Don't get too attached to anybody, because not everybody makes it. And then there's going to be 2 new characters in every book as well. And the 2 new characters in the book 2 are really funny. They're very interesting.
Are they related to the existing characters, or are they complete spin-offs and a new vantage point on what's happening?
So to give you an example, and this is quite interesting to talk about because it reshaped the scripts, because I've written the entire first season of the TV show.
Yeah, we'll move into that in a minute.
Yeah, it was designed to be a TV show from day one. One of the new characters is a guy called Rafferty James, who's a sort of dry-humoured New Zealander with ginger hair, who is massively into UFOs and has been part of Project Listen. Project Listen is a real thing. It's part of the initiatives of Yuri Milner, the billionaire, to find alien intelligent life. And Project Listen now co-own or co-fund most of the satellite listening stations around the world. And one of those is the one in Parkes. And Parkes is in Australia, in the middle of nowhere. And Rafferty James, who's just got divorced, ends up working at Parkes as the Parkes station chief as part of Project Listen. Now, I knew I wanted to put his character in from day one, but I didn't have enough room for him in book 1. Right. But in book 1, he appears on someone's television set, and it says there's a mad New Zealander going, "Oh my God, look! I've been proven right. UFOs are real," because one of them lands right next to Parkes. And then in the second book, his is the first narrative that you see, and we follow him. And then he ends up meeting a guy from SETI, who's a little person who looks exactly and sounds exactly like Peter Dinklage.
Okay.
And I don't know if you watch Flight of the Conchords. Have you ever seen that?
No, I know it, but I haven't seen it.
There's an actor in that who plays their manager, and the manager's called Murray. Okay. Got any gigs, Murray? Let me just check. No. That's kind of his lines. Okay. He's played by this New Zealand actor called Rhys Darby, who's absolutely fantastic actor. I really rate him. His comedy timing is brilliant. And from day one, I knew I wanted to write a character based on him. And I know he's massively into UFOs. So I sent him a copy of the first book, and I said, "You're going to be in the second one, in all but name." And I know he got the first book because he wrote to me and thanked me for it. He hasn't told me what he thought of it, so I don't know if he's read it.
He might tell you. He might tell you when the TV series is commissioned and he wants his part.
Yeah, well, I mean, the funny thing is so in the TV show scripts are slightly different, and his character opening is so good that I decided that was going to be the opening of the TV show. So his character actually appears in season 1 from the get-go.
So you went after having written the novel and you created then the season 1 TV show scripts. Have you done all the scripts, or is it just a treatment?
No. I wrote
all of them,
all 10 of them in 5 weeks, including rewrites, second and third drafts over the summer of 2020.
God bless lockdown in one way. That was a way to help you be productive.
How that came about was because the Outcasts, which is the acting group that me and Dick and Tolson run, who's a fantastic acting coach, we used to run these classes face to face every Monday night in Old Street. I'm sure we'll do them again. Very cheap, £10. They're a drop in, and you just come along and you come whatever week suits you. And it was mainly improv based, so we could keep it free. And it was just a place that people could come and stretch their acting muscles. And we both used to teach another class that was very similar, run by the late Graham Fletcher Cook, who was a really good friend of ours, passed away in 2019. So we decided to start up something similar to what he did, and in a way kind of continue his legacy, I suppose. And from that, we had a really good core group of actors that came week on, week out. And when lockdown happened, within a few weeks, they were all calling me and Dick and were like, "We're all feeling pretty depressed, guys. Can we do something online?" And we were like, "I don't know that we can run an improv class online." But then I thought, I've got lots of scripts. And we started doing table reads of scripts every week. And then I wrote the pilot for Diamonds in the Sky. I think it was around April time. Maybe end of April. Yeah, end of April, I think it was. And everybody was like, "Wow, this is really good. This is great." And I made it really fun. I had sound effects and music and all this stuff as we were doing the table reads. And it's like, "Lance, we're doing episode 2 of this next week, right?" And I was like, "Yes, we are." And I hadn't written episode 2 yet. So that gave me, what we talked about.
There was that deadline. There you go.
That gave me a deadline where I was coherently responsible for 20 actors and we had 20 to 25. We even had 30 actors on one episode because everybody started hearing about it. It got so popular. I had too many people that wanted to come on every week. We didn't have enough parts.
So that pressure basically forced you indirectly, I guess, to write.
Yeah, by the time they'd performed episode 2, I'd written episode 3. By the time they were on 5, I was on 7.
So did you find that once you were in the groove of getting to episode 2 or 3, it was sort of like, screw it, I'm just going to keep going because now I'm unwrapped?
It was all here. I mean, apart from the Rafferty James storyline, which was new but easy to write because he was in Australia, so he was disconnected from the other characters, because some of the other characters' storylines cross over or converge, and they're going to keep doing that as time goes on.
Yeah.
It was actually really easy. It was a joy to write as well, and there was kind of an electricity. There was such a buzz around reading it every week. I was getting such a joy of hearing it being brought to life, and it was a really useful thing as a writer.
I was just going to ask, is that one of the first times maybe that you've had such immediate feedback loop on your writing within a week of writing it? That's pretty quick.
No, because Diamonds was April, May, going into June. I think we'd already, on the back of this hoodie, these are all the screenplays.
The tour.
I wrote specifically in lockdown. There's a couple that were done by a couple of the other outcasts there as well. Toby Cockrell did one, Kenny O'Connor did one, but we did all of these. This is why this is a 2020 lockdown original hoodie.
Yeah.
And we had those printed up, especially for all the people that took part. And there was, I think, it was over 70 actors we had roughly throughout the whole year. So I'd already had feedback very immediately on other scripts. What was happening actually was, as we were doing the read-throughs, I was rewriting the lines, even during the read-throughs. And then the very next day, I would go over the script again while it was all fresh. I'd make cuts, I'd do improvements. And with some of the Diamonds in the Sky episodes, we read them twice because I wanted to hear them again.
Sure.
And because that's a show that I'm going to be pushing in the near future, I really wanted the whole season to be as tight and as good as it could be. Oh, and I'll blow my own trumpet a bit, but it's great. And I have to give the outcasts that took part a huge credit for that, because they brought the characters to life and they enabled me to see what was working and what wasn't so quickly. And everybody was so keen. And, if I start mentioning them by name, I'll forget people, so I won't. But
we were in deep lockdown, right? So people were craving creativity, and I think you gave that outlet, and it's a win-win.
Yeah, and then that sort of, then from there we kind of went like, can we not do a performance online? And that's what led to Persecution, which was a 5-part drama series that we actually performed over Zoom. And as you know, we're doing more things of that vernacular later this year. I keep forgetting it is actually 2021.
I know, it's crazy, right? Which we'll talk about.
Say next year, and I'm thinking, no, it is 2021.
Next year is waiting for you to have script written for it that you haven't done yet. So next year has got its own bag of goodies, or maybe some of the ones you've written picked up as a show that starts to get.
Oh, God, I really hope so.
Well, you've got all the stuff behind it, right? You've got the books. Now it's plural, but you also did some vignettes as well that I know you created, and you've got your whole pitch deck. So it's not just, an idea. Plus,
yeah, I've got a pitch deck done with kind of some casting suggestions and things in there, but I have actually got actors attached to it as well. I've got about 6 now.
Cool. But I guess the key is that you've got scripts written.
They're ready to go. I mean, the pilot is really tight, and it would be great if we could shoot the pilot. But one of the things I always wanted to do with the book, I mean, the whole idea with the book was to get a groundswell of fan base, from a demographic that I wasn't familiar with. I also wanted to push myself. I love pushing myself as a writer. I'd never written a novel before. Everybody says they're going to do one. I was in my sort of, I can't remember, mid to late 40s when I wrote this. So I was thinking, I'm not far off the big 5-0. I need to get cracking. And if it's 6 books as well, I didn't want to get into George R.R. Martin mode where people have been waiting how long for the next Game of Thrones novel?
You just want it there.
Yeah, so I wrote the second one pretty quickly in the end, but I went through quite a turbulent time after writing the first one. A big film project I was working on collapsed. It was all pretty horrible. We won't get into it, but it was a really horrible time, and I found that very discombobulating for my writing process. And I got to be in the right headspace to write. If I'm not,
sure,
unless I'm doing rewrites on something that's already there, I can do that when I'm not in a great place.
But to create from nothing,
I've got to be in the right.
I like that you brought that up because they are two very not. It's part of the same skill set, but it's a different thing to make something from thin air and imagine it creatively, put it on the blank page, and face the blank page, versus facing a page that's already pre-created with some world.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to, you've got to have done a ton of prep. So that, okay, you're not in a great mood, but you've done the prep. So, you know
executing.
You know what needs to be in that scene. You've just got to say to yourself, come on, get on the keyboard and get on with it. Okay, it might not be your best work today, but you can improve it tomorrow.
Yeah.
But if you've done nothing and you're trying to write something and you're not in the right headspace, forget it. You need to go and sit down and watch Fargo and take yourself somewhere else. Yeah.
Well, look, I've got a few people in the waiting room, and I think it's great to bring in. I'm going to bring in Hugo because he's a writer or trying to be a writer, so it's probably a good segue to bring him in.
Yeah, that's cool.
Hugo's a recent grad as well.
Hello, Victor.
Hugo, you're on mute. No, you're not.
Did I say that right? Barman? Is that Barman?
Barman. Like someone who works at a pub.
Barman. Okay.
Barman.
Handy if you work in a pub or a club.
Yeah, but surprisingly in no other situations. It's like a very, very niche space where it's a useful name. But I like it.
You're a skater. I can see.
I'm not. This is from our short film that we made. That's how I know Ashley. This was his character's skateboard in the film.
I was about to run out the room and get my Boba Fett skateboard, but I won't.
You have a Boba Fett skateboard?
Yeah, I've got a Boba Fett.
You'd just be showing him up though, Lance, if you did that, because he can't actually skate.
I don't skate much myself anymore. I'm a bit long in the tooth for that now. I've got a bad knee when I came off a ramp. So anyway, welcome, Victor. So you're a writer. Do you want to maybe tell me where you're at so I can best help?
Yeah. I mean, I finished university last summer. I did a film making degree, and I specialised in screenwriting in my last year. Since then, I've done an internship for a production company where I was a script reader for them, and since then, I've had a sort of semi-related job, but not really. It's I run a YouTube channel that focuses on local news, but the whole thing is very tongue-in-cheek, and I call it alternative news because it's not really news. It's more like I'll take.
More like not the 9 o'clock news.
Yeah, exactly. It was sort of like a mix between like Brass Eye and Moments of Wonder, if you've ever seen that.
Mate, you've got to be a fan of Jermaine Clement and
Love him.
Yeah, Flight of the Conchords. We've just talked that deadpan, dry sense of humour. That
So
sounds
good.
like your show.
That's Hugo.
That's me.
Mate, there you go. See, I've got you down to a T already.
Love it.
So, okay, cool. So I've got a sense of what you've done. Well, what's your question? Where can I try and?
Well, I mean, I've written up a few questions, but just like I guess I'd say in general, I'm sort of still trying to figure out where I want to go. Obviously, long-term aspiration would be screenwriting for film and TV, as I'm sure I think like everyone is. Yeah. But that would be a big one for me. I had a few questions I'd like to ask you.
Go for it.
One, I saw when I was looking you up, I saw that you've written for so many different mediums. You've written for the stage, for the screen.
Yeah.
And you've got your books and stuff as well. How do you know which medium you want to tell your story on?
That's a really good question. I've never been asked that question before.
Thanks.
A good example of this would be Sticks and Stones. Just grab my portfolio here. My second play was a play about the conflict in Northern Ireland called Sticks and Stones. And after I won my first award for the Hillsborough play, I had an interview with the BBC and the Director General of it. And was it the director, head of drama, I think? Sorry, not Director General, head of drama. Let me get that right. And it was a guy called Mal Young at the time, who I believe is working in America now. And he said, "What do you want to do next?" And I'd seen this amazing television show which launched the careers of Daniel Craig, Mark Strong, Christopher Eccleston, and Gina McKee, 4 of our best British actors there, called Our Friends in the North. Check it out. It's available on DVD. It's shot in an old format, so it looks a bit dated on HD. Just watch it though, brilliant. And it's about 4 friends' lives. Starts in the 60s, ends in the 90s, and it's about how various social and political events impacted their lives and sent them off this direction or that direction. And I loved it. It was epic. It was character arc driven, amazing performances. And I thought, I've got to write something like that. And I had an interest in Northern Ireland at the time, which had always been around in my life as a kid. My dad worked in central London. There was a lot of bombings going off. There were bombs found in Harrods and things like this. And he worked in Regent Street. So there was a lot of memories of mother on the phone, very worried in the house, and us watching stuff about the IRA. And the British media really whipping up the hatred for the Irish, and me not really understanding it and falling for that. And now, of course, I have a much better, wider perspective of the huge complexities involved. So I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to do a story about 4 characters who somehow are connected or drawn into the events in Northern Ireland, and it's set over 30 years, and it will be like Our Friends in the North, but it will be like Our Friends in Northern Ireland. And I started writing that, and it was always designed to be a TV show. And I told Mal Young that was what I wanted to do. But I wasn't a very big name at the time, but I'd done a play in the theatre, and I thought, maybe I can get this to work on stage. And it was just about finding somewhere to put the story where people could see it. And you see, the most important thing to me was I had a story that I wanted to tell. Where can people hear it? And the place that was immediately available to me was not television, because I wasn't big enough. It was stage. So we ended up putting it up on stage. This was the brochure of the first run. It was on twice, actually. And then inside the programme, I had a timeline. So you can see that. And there were timelines of historical events, but then you also had things like Lawrence Ford joins the parachute regiment. Lawrence Ford was my British character. So people could see where the characters in the story fitted in the timeline.
Yeah.
And I ended up writing that for theatre. Funnily enough, we did a read through of the pilot for the TV show, which I've written more recently in lockdown last year.
Okay. So it could still be adapted.
Does that? I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, but the short answer is I had a story I wanted to tell. What's the medium that's available to me that I can get to work to tell that story? And I'd already done a stage play, my first. So I thought, can this work for stage? And I really pushed it, mate. We had like a 2-minute gun battle on stage in this production. You don't get to see that in the theatre very often. I recreated Bloody Sunday on stage, which was not easy, you know. An SAS ambush with machine guns firing behind the audience, and all the guys on the ambush were getting creamed on the stage, and it was you know, I tried to do a lot that was outside of what people would normally try and do in theatre, push the envelope a bit, and I mean that's pretty typical.
Do you think that was as a result of having thought of it as a TV show initially and then transferring to the medium?
I just wanted to tell the story. Think of it like that. I mean, and you're going to hear that famous phrase, right? Story is king.
Yeah.
And I know you've done quite a few courses, and a lot of the time I run this very short writing workshop thing. It's a one-dayer about preparation before you get on the keyboard. And most of the biggest problem I find with a lot of people that have done a university course, I'm not saying you have this issue, it's just something I found, is people are trying to think about what are the 3 acts, or they're thinking about their structure all the time. They're thinking about structure, acts, and all that stuff, because that stuff's drilled into you on courses. And it's not that stuff isn't important, it is. But you can't put that stuff before the story. Story has got to come first. A good story will fall into 3 acts anyway. So I'm always saying, just think about the story first. Think about the story you want to tell, and then what is the medium? Write the story first, and then think, okay, can I make this as a short film? No, I can't. Can I get it to any commissioners? No, I can't. Can I get it on stage? Will it work on stage? And then worry about what will work and what won't. Yeah. And I didn't cut out anything. I included everything that I wanted in the TV show was on the stage. But it was a condensed version of the story. It was 3 acts, and each act was a decade. And the idea would be in the TV show is that each decade would be a season, you know. Yeah. So, but the reason I realised it was doable was because somebody turned around to me and said, "Did you know Our Friends in the North was originally a play?" And I was like, I had no idea that the television version of it is, I think, 6 90-minute episodes. Yeah. So it's almost like 6 feature films. The play, I think, was a 2.5-hour play. So he had that whole story in a play. So I thought, well, let me find the most important moments of the story. And I knew which scene I was going to write first. I wrote that scene first. Very important lesson in writing. Always write the scene that's clearest in your head first. Don't start at the beginning if you don't know what the beginning is. And that was the scene I wrote first, and it just all came out after that, really fast.
But how would you say that you balance that? Because you said story's key, 100%. I agree. How do you balance that with then like writing it, like almost not as a story, but as like a pitch that you're trying to like sell someone? How? Because I saw that you did producing work as well. How was that affected?
Yeah, I hate producing. Don't ask me about that. I only do that. No one wants to produce.
No.
You know, and the people that do want to produce are only concerned about one thing: how much percentage of your budget are they going to get to keep for doing as little as possible?
So how do you balance your like writing process with like all of those things like going on in the back of your head as well, or do you?
I don't think about that. I don't. When you write a script, you should not, because you're a writer-director. So you're like me, because I'm a director first, by the way. Before I'm a writer, I'm a director first. But writing is something I've got really, 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 really good at, and I'd love to be directing every other month, because I think the more you do it, the better you get at it. But I'm only directing every other year or whatever, depending on what's available and what I can get.
Yeah.
I don't think about it, and I think as a writer director, and a lot of people of your generation and the people coming up behind you are all thinking I'm going to write and direct. They probably overthink everything. Do the script first and don't worry about any of the other stuff.
Right.
When you've got the script done and you've focused on telling the story and you've focused on your character arcs and all that stuff, now work out the concise, what is this? What's the log line for this? What's the one-page synopsis for this? Because you can't work those things out until you've got the script as good as it can be. There's no point having a half-cocked script and then working out how to pitch it. You're doing it all in the wrong order. You've got to script, first of all, number one, has to be as good as possible. And I mean, we could talk for half an hour about how you're going to get that there. We won't. Relax, Ash. Don't worry. You know, that's got to be your primary concern. I still get this now. Okay, so like I just done a pilot for someone, and one of the things I put in the email was, oh well, I've written this scene with this bit and this bit, but if you want to save budget, da 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 da. And the first thing the producer wrote back to me was, don't worry about the budget. You just focus on making the script and don't constrain yourself.
I see. That's a good producer. That's
and
the
that,
producer.
and that's the dream producer, because that what they were doing was taking producers and directors' hat off, Lance. Just focus on. So I was like, yeah, okay, and also I'm used to working on a lot of low budget indie stuff, and this script for this particular project is not that. It's up there. So I was always thinking about ways to save money. They had to remind me, don't think about that. There are extreme opposites of this, Victor. I wrote a script last year called Behind Closed Doors.
Right.
And I listed what's called available assets. And I thought, right, I need to write, this was what I was going to do before lockdown. I was going to write a script. I was going to make a film as cheaply as possible that had a clear commercial box tick. And I was going to ask every actor I knew of merit as a favour to be in it. So I listed those actors. I knew which ones would have limited availability. And I wrote a script where I could get them all in and all out really quickly. And the roles were decent enough that they would want to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the complete opposite of what we've just talked about. But I think you have to... I felt that I've got the level of experience where I could sit down and I could do that and still write a really good script with all those horrible constraints around me, because that was script number, I don't know, 65 or something. It wasn't script number 5.
Yeah.
I think if you're doing that as a second script, it's a lot harder. It's not that you can't. If you want to just get out there and you want to make something, sometimes you have to sit down and be realistic and say, okay, well, look, I've heard this on lockdown a lot. I'm going to write a script with 2 people in a room.
Yeah.
So then your first port of call is really to have a brainstorming session with a mate about, okay, let's list every scenario of 2 people in a room. And of course, the first one that comes up is police interview. And that's the one you don't do. That's we've all seen that. How many times we've seen police interviews on people's show reels? Oh my God. So, you know, ones that are just done for show reel. So you write a huge list of these things and just keep going and don't write the most ridiculous ones down you can think of, and suddenly something will pop up that's, oh, yeah, that could be interesting. And then you go from there, you know.
Yeah.
So there's no hard and fast rules on these things. It all depends on circumstances and where you're at and end goals and... Anyway, I'm waffling now. Next question.
All I hear is that I should just get a producer that's willing to throw money at me.
Yeah.
That's the real takeaway from this.
Okay, right. Let's talk about that. Yes, that'd be great. And I've got a few indie film friends who, you know, they've made one cracking good film. They've got producers or a producer willing to invest in them to put money into another film, and that's great. And that's kind of the cycle that everyone wants to get in.
Yeah.
You're not going to find that person unless you've got something already.
Yeah, yeah.
So what you really need to do is good example. Okay, and I mean these guys weren't nobodies, but let's go back to Jermaine Clement again.
Yeah.
Even they, who had some clout behind them, they'd already done a few things. To get what we do in the shadows commissioned, they had to go out and make a short about it.
Yeah.
And they made that short in 2005. And what we do in the shadows, I think, shot in 2015, I want to say. So that's a 10-year transitional period from short to feature for people who already had, in 2005, Flight of the Conchords were already out, but I think they were just about to do their HBO show. You know, so these were not nobodies, and Taika had already directed at least one feature film, and they still couldn't just get people to give them the money, and do you know that they crowdfunded to distribute that movie?
I didn't.
Yeah, they crowdfunded to distribute that movie, and you know all the vampire stuff that you see in the film, the teeth and the ears on the old guy down in the basement, all of that stuff got nicked off the set of The Hobbit. They're friends with Peter Jackson, and he'd just say, "Go and look in the skip," and you know they'd be pulling out orc ears and things for Peter's ears, and they had like a box of discarded orc ears. And I love those guys. I'd work with them in a heartbeat.
That's got to be rough with Peter Jackson to see people take his props and make a better film. Right?
By the way, I actually dedicated this book to Peter Jackson, funnily enough.
Oh, no way. That's so cool.
I've got a dedication in the front somewhere, and one of the people I dedicated it to in the forward, I remember very specifically, was that I dedicated it to Peter Jackson, and I said, "For giving me a light in my life when all other times felt dark," which was kind of a line from Lord of the Rings, because I was going through some horrendous things when the trilogy was out, and one of the things that kept me going was I wanted to see the next part of the trilogy. So I've got to be there to see the Two Towers, and then I've got to be there to see Return of the King. So that played a big part in my life at that time. Was a good thing.
Oh yeah, King Kong was the reason that I wanted to make films as well. Seeing that as a kid.
The original or Peter Jackson?
Peter Jackson one, because that was the one I saw as a kid. Like that's one of my first big cinema memories.
The scene with the leeches.
Terrifying. Yeah.
Okay, hit me with another one. We got time for another one, Ashley? Or?
There's a few people in the waiting room to come in, but if you got one, Hugo, go for the final one.
One quick one. I'll try and be quick. Sorry.
I saw that you've got lots of plates spinning. You've got loads of projects. It seems like you're working on all the time. How do you?
Lots of irons and fires, as I like to say.
Exactly. How do you prioritize your projects? How do you decide how you're going to split up your time?
Okay, so at the minute I'm working on 2 scripts for 2 different groups of friends of mine. I just did 2 days on one. I'm shifting gears, and I'm doing this evening. I'll be working on the other one. But the project that I mentioned earlier, the pilot that's quite highbrow, for example, they came in with some notes the other day. That straight away took priority over everything else, because that's the project that's the most likely to be commissioned. It's the most likely paycheck, so it's at the front of the queue. But I've done all the work on it already, so that took a day, and then boom, I was straight back on something else. I think at my age, I prioritise the stuff that I'm A, most passionate about, and B, that's most likely to lead to a paycheck. But I'm always interested in talking to people. I'm always interested in collaborations. I don't direct everything I write. I don't write everything I direct. I'm always up for doing little acting parts, because I started off as an actor in people's bits as well. So, you know, if you're doing your little short film and someone drops out on the day, don't be afraid to Facebook message me. If I can get on the tube and come down there, I'll be there.
You're like Tarantino.
Listen, I was in Bugsy Malone as a kid, not the film, the stage play production. I had the acting bug from a young age. I didn't get the support from my parents, so I didn't really push it.
Right.
And then I kind of fell into the directing and directing and writing is what people know me for, but I like doing acting, just bits and pieces. I don't think I can be cast as many things because I've got quite. People say I look like Quentin Tarantino, so
Yeah.
I can see a little. Hey, Hugo, you're the same. You write stuff and then you star in it as well. So
That's true. Against my will, but yeah.
That's what happens.
Mate, but if you need a male actor playing age 38 to 49, I'm there.
Oh yeah, you're gonna regret saying that, Lance. I'm gonna make it happen.
No, honestly, I'll come down and do. Don't give me a big role, but I mean, I'll come down and play the crazy dad or the scientist or something.
Whoa, slow down. Let me write this down. Crazy dad. Weird science.
Honestly, if I'm free,
available assets.
A mate of mine did a film called Kaleidoscope Man, and he was getting all his friends to do a cameos in it. And I said, mate, I'll do one. I didn't know you were an actor. And I said, of course I was. And I ended up being a tank commander in it. And I was driving this tank around in the square in Birmingham, which was doubling for London. And you can see me. I'm like, Jesus Christ, open fire. And I had a big moustache, especially for the part. It's hilarious.
That is great.
It was a lot of fun.
I think the moral.
Lovely to meet you, Victor.
You too.
All right, Hugo. I'll leave you to it. I think the moral of this is do what you can with what you got when you got it.
That's
I've
got that tattooed across my knuckles.
That's a good summary of my waffleage. Thank you, Ashley, for concising my advice there.
No worries. Hugo.
Thank you so much, Lance, for all your advice.
Add me on Facebook, mate. Find me on Facebook and add me. Send me a request.
Will do, pal.
All
right. Thanks so much.
See you later, Hugo. Bye.
If he's got a Facebook account, because he is like under 30, so
there you go. Maybe
he might not have one.
Snapchat only or TikTok.
That reminds me, I sent you a friend request. Did you accept it yet?
Did you?
I did.
On Facebook.
Just to let you know, viewers, Ashley has not accepted my.
There you go. To be fair, there's a lot of people. I don't go on Facebook much. To be fair. I'll tell you why. Because I've worked in digital marketing as well for 15 years, and I know what it actually does.
They mine all your data. I hate the way it's changed. I don't see like the posts from my friends anymore. It's all
because it's prioritizing the people that pay ads and put the ads out there. So you won't see your friend stuff as much, but you'll see a load of Lab Bible or some other promoted content. That's how
fortunately, I've got an ad blocker on my computer, so I don't get to see any of those things.
There you go. But that's how they rig elections. Anyway, that's someone else's podcast.
I saw that movie.
I think I lived that movie.
Shocking stuff.
Yeah, right.
Who's coming on now?
Yeah, there's more people adding into this waiting room, so they're bringing Sean because he's been waiting for a while.
Okay.
Sean is a director and writer. Thanks for waiting, Sean.
Hi, Sean. Director Sean Martin.
Sean,
you've got like a first name at the beginning and at the
end. I've heard that before.
Sean's finally your student now, aren't you?
I am, yeah. Final year.
I've introed you as director and writer, but I guess more director.
I don't know really. I think I've written the screenplay that I'm directing now, so I like to think of myself as doing both.
Fair play.
So, yeah.
You'll find out which one you enjoy more as you go along. Don't worry, you've got the
of course.
You can figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, I think I lean more towards directing. Like, if I could just do one, I'd say it'd probably be directing. But yeah, I kind of think that
writing
when I speak about
writing is a solitary thing that you do on your own. Directing, you get to hang out with people.
Yeah.
So if you're with the right group of people, it can be a lot more fun. Anyway, hit us up with a question, Sean. What can I try and take anything I say with a pinch of salt? But what can I try and
I will do, yeah. No, I guess I just wanted to get insight on, like I was saying, the sort of difference between sort of the early stages of like a writer's career and a director's career in terms of, I'm about to finish my final year of uni. I'm obviously thinking about what's next, and I would love the idea to just get into a writing job, but it's obviously different to other areas.
How old are you now? What, 22 or something like that?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. This kind of would be the question of Lance, if you could go back to when you were 22 and tell yourself how you should do your career differently, what would you do? And I think my personal answer to myself, so I guess it's the same thing to you, is I probably would have found some of the time I spent in my 20s better served. I didn't really pursue my career in my 20s. I got a job in retail, and I kind of I got a bit lost. I didn't really think the acting thing wasn't supported by my parents. I didn't know anything about directing. I was doing some writing. I'd written some stuff, but I didn't know the craft at all. And I was completely sidetracked, and I worked in retail for a few years until I took the company to court, won a load of money, and then made my first feature film. But that's another story.
And that's not what you should be doing, Sean, by the way.
Yeah, so my advice to you would be is, at the age you're at now, keep learning the craft of writing and directing whenever you get the chance on your own projects. It's great that you're doing your own stuff because everybody's doing their own stuff. There's no excuse. No, you can't procrastinate because, as my good friend says, you can shoot a film on your bloody iPhone. You can edit a film on your phone. You can do everything on your phone. Think about that compared to people that were trying to make films in the 70s, whose first stage of it was, how many companies can we knock on the door and see if they've got a spare reel of 16 mil that we can patch together to the other 60 reels that we've scrounged, and now we can go out and make a film. And then they've got to worry about how they're going to process it. You don't even have to worry about any of that. You do it all. I mean, now it's a question of how strong is the idea and how good is the resolution and what's the best quality. Those are and it always comes back to how strong is the idea. So my game plan would be twofold. On the one, on your sort of personal side, do your own things, keep learning your craft, because your best teacher is yourself when it comes to that stuff, because you're going to learn by your mistakes. And believe me, you're going to make plenty. And then on the other side, I would probably try and get short, sharp stints with production companies. Knock on doors, send your CV. Don't tell them you want to be a director. Tell them you want to work in production. You're prepared to be a runner for expenses only, or you're prepared to be a runner. Maybe don't tell them how little you're going to work for, but just knock on production companies' doors. I don't know, where are you based?
I'm in Leeds at the moment.
Well, that's good news, because Channel 4 has just moved up there, haven't they?
Yeah, I've actually just applied to a job that they put out there for a researcher for like the small production companies they work with.
Perfect. I think all of those jobs, which are in the sphere that you want to be working in, will be great, because if you're thinking about long-term career as, let's say, a writer, learning as much about the business and how it works will only help you get those doors open down the road. And if you're making those relationships now, and I didn't do that at your age, and it wasn't as easy in some ways, because we didn't have digital, so we couldn't create shit on our own. Let's not get into it, but I was doing I shot a feature film on SVHS. A whole feature film on SVHS in the early 90s. The resolution of it is so low that I don't think we can transfer it to DVD or even a computer. But you can make little things. You can be editing your show reel. You can be improving on all that stuff, while at the same time getting those researcher jobs, getting those runner jobs. I mean, if I don't know if there's ever any jobs going, but if you can get a job for Nicholas Schindler at Red Productions, who are based in Manchester, who just produced It's a Sin, fantastic piece of television. Knock on her door. She's a tough, hard woman, but she'll teach you everything you need to know about the business. She is a formidable producer and has produced some of the best television in the last 10 years, Nicholas Schindler. And I'm just thinking of organisations that are, not stone's throw from. So forget about London, focus on the Channel 4s and the Manchester guys.
Yeah. That's a good point, because a lot of you get the idea that being in, you know, the film school, or be anybody that wants to be, you know, in the film industry, that you get the idea that there's a certain like elitism in London and those areas where you have
That was definitely the case 10,
yeah,
15 years ago. There are still people that believe that, and it might still have that air. I call bullshit on all that now. I mean, like post production used to all be in Soho. It's not all in Soho now, because guess what? Renting offices in Soho is expensive. You know, the move of Channel 4 to go to Leeds, half of that was probably based on, I'm guessing that renting rates in Leeds are probably pretty competitive compared to the South, you know?
yeah,
And it's great that they moved there. You know, it sucks for me because I'm based in London, but it's great that they did move there because I'm all for our creative cornerstones being moved around different parts of the UK. And the other thing you should do as well is you must learn to collaborate and be a collaborator. Write for other directors, direct for other writers. You know, I think I talk to a lot of people around your age who are writer directors, and you can tell they want to do everything and control everything. And the sooner you learn to collaborate and listen to other people's ideas and give credit where it's due to other people that you work with. If you go back and watch the beginning of this interview, I think the first thing I did was credit somebody else for inspiring me about a character that I wrote or something like that. You should always give those people credit. And it's very important to give back. When you get to my age, you want to be sitting here telling somebody these stories. You know, it really is. That's how our industry goes. Our industry doesn't grow by being insular and giving all the same people the plummy jobs. And that kind of annoys me a bit about the acting industry, that, you know, the same 20, 30 actors seem to get all the plummy jobs. And there's enough jobs out there now with all the platforms to share that wealth a bit more. And it is being shared a bit more, but it's, you know,
Slow burn.
It's a slow burn. It needs to burn faster.
You're preaching to the converted ear.
Yeah, that's also like a huge difference now in the age that we're living in, is that there is so much content. Like you were saying, it's so much easier to produce things, and there's more of a demand for it. It's easier for people to watch things at home.
There is, and look, I don't know how much you know about the American television market, but a great example is I'm trying to remember the name of the show now. There's a black actress called Issa Rae, and she did a one-woman comedy sketch show on YouTube. She built an audience, and it was basically just her talking about her dating experiences, kind of creating a character. And off the back of that, she got a show with HBO, which is now in its third season, called Insecure. It's called Insecure. And it's aimed at a black American audience, but I watched it. I loved it. I like anything that's funny about the idiosyncrasies of human nature and dating and relationships and all that stuff. If it's written well and it feels real and it feels genuine, and because she'd injected all her personal experiences into her writing, you know, it comes across as very authentic. It's very real. And they might see it as a black show in America, but I love it. I watch every episode of it. I think it's great. So that just, you know, that grew from a one-woman show on YouTube. Started off as a very small thing. She plugged it. So it's all about finding your niche and getting that ground base and then pushing it forward, if that's what you want to do. You know.
I think, again, like touching on that, is Ashley mentioned as well that you're very much of the DIY approach in terms of being able to build up from, you know, like the example you mentioned. That's something that I kind of look at as well, in terms of
just. Listen, I knock on all the doors. I write. I enter the competitions. I fill out funding applications. I do all that stuff. I've got friends that do that stuff, and when people say no, they moan and they don't do anything, and they wait for the funding to come. I don't do that. I would rather be making something and doing something, even if it's small, even if it's an online radio play on YouTube, which is we're just about to start casting for that now. I'd rather be doing that, and we're making that from nothing. We don't have a budget or anything, but what we do have is a great script and a great story. So, and the will to put it on, and some fantastic actors involved already. So, so we can make something, we can do something, and people can watch it. It's not an HBO thing with a 5 million budget episode. It's a radio play on YouTube, streaming live with people talking. But it's going to be a passionate, emotional story that people can engage with, and I know it will find an audience. And so you can get out and you can do stuff. Basically, what I'm saying is, don't procrastinate, don't sit on your arse. And I would fight a battle on two fronts: engage with the professional industry, get jobs there where you can, get research jobs, get runner jobs, but don't ever just do that. You've got loads of energy. You're in your 20s, so you can afford to do these two things. And then on the weekends, whatever, make your shorts, do all those other things, and you can't go wrong. I think maybe we should give somebody else a chance if there's other people waiting.
There's a few people waiting. I'd say, Sean, before we wrap up. Do you know Jim Cummings? Have you heard of Jim Cummings? Have you heard of him, Lance?
Is that the actor?
Was it Thunder
Is there an actor called
Thunder
Jim
Road? Thunder Road is he acts in his film too. So I get he's actor, but he did Thunder Road the short, then he did Thunder Road the feature. But before that, he did I think 10 short films. And now he's made a feature and he started to get traction. But it's all the stuff he did before. And when I say short films, some of them are 3 minutes with 3 characters.
Yeah, he was a voiceover actor for a long time. If it's the guy,
right? Possibly. Yeah. Barry Jenkins, I think, was the same. If you remember, Denzel Washington did a speech, I think it was at the Globes years ago, and he talks about Barry Jenkins and said before Moonlight, Barry Jenkins had to did 12 short films that not many people saw, but eventually he got to that stage. So I guess
it's all practice as well, isn't it? It's all, even if nobody sees it, it's for you at the end of the day.
Like I said to you earlier, everything you do, you're honing your craft and you're learning from your mistakes, and nothing is ever a waste of time. Even the projects that I've worked on that fell apart or didn't get off the ground, the experience that I learned on those was valuable in some way, particularly in dealing with certain people within the industry. But so I got something out of it, even though in other ways I got nothing out of it. Do you know what I mean? There was always value to be found somewhere, and that's the way you have to look at your losses over your victories. There's always, you get every project you do, even the ones that are awful, that are hard, and the cast give you a hard time. Or I worked on one production in particular where I hated going into rehearsals, absolutely hated it. And that's an awful position as a director to be in, because then you've got to get in there and you've got to imbue enthusiasm and be a leader, and it's really challenging. And I don't think I did the best job on that particular piece because it was so divisive. A show, not the actual production, the story, just the team was all, and you get times like that where I'm afraid not all the odds, as they say in the Hunger Games, will be in your favour, and you'll just have to roll with the punches, son, and slug your way through it. But you get through it, and you come out the other side, and you live and learn, and you do the next one. It's all a learning curve.
Cool. Sean, thanks for joining me.
Sean, lovely to meet you. Feel free to add me on Facebook. I know you're quite young, so you might not be on Facebook, but I am. If you want to add me, feel free.
I will do. Thanks for having me on as well, Ashley. And
always. Take it easy, Sean. Good to see you, man. Take care.
You too. See you later.
Yeah,
bye.
Lovely chat.
Awesome. All right. Let me bring in. Well, I'll let you pick Ruben or Nathan. Which would you like?
Rupert or Nathan?
Ruben. Like, yeah.
Let's go with Ruben.
Let's go with Ruben.
As I got his name wrong.
There we go. Don't tell him that.
Well, I think we'll have time for everybody, I'm sure.
We should do. Ruben, how you doing, buddy?
Hello. Hiya.
Good.
You're
Thanks
right,
for waiting. Good to see you, man.
Nice. All right. Yeah, it's good to see you too.
It's Hugo. Hugo talks for ages. That's why.
Oh, I mean,
blame him.
You don't need to tell me that. Yeah.
I know.
I guess some of it's good. If there's enough words there that he puts out, then you can.
Sure. He can string a sentence together. Anyway, I'm gonna shut up and let you say hi to Lance and just fire away any questions you got.
You look
for him.
like you're sitting in a church pew, Ruben. But maybe
No, I'm
it's on
just.
a
I
bed.
don't actually have a desk, so I am just on my bed. Yeah.
Well, that's where many people have spent lockdown. So don't worry.
Exactly.
You're not
Yeah.
alone.
I'll just come out of lockdown with awful posture, but the sacrifices we make, isn't it?
Most writer directors have awful posture, so join the club. It's a job requirement normally, I think.
Yeah, probably that, or you're just gonna get it anyway.
So, Rubes, hit me up with your questions.
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks Ash for asking me to come back on.
Of course.
I was having a look through your IMDb, just your list of credits and everything, and I think Hugo mentioned to me that he was going to mention to you about your how you went about choosing what medium to write stuff in, and
yeah,
I was looking through you're written for plays, you're an author, novel author, screenplays, and I was wondering how have you managed to find a way to keep consistently going between these different mediums, and how did you start, and which one did you start with, and how did you realize you could break off and do so many?
I started with film because I wrote a screenplay with the longest title ever called Death Comes from the Touch of the Funny Man, which was the feature film I shot on SVHS, which I mentioned earlier. I didn't know anything about screenplay writing then, and I think what I basically wrote and I gave to the actors, because I wanted the script to be improvised, was I wrote them like a 26-page treatment, which was a chronological diary of the story and where the characters fitted in and who they were. And from that we broke down, by the way, I'm not suggesting you do this, and from that we broke down a series of scenes and we kind of improv the whole thing, and we ended up with a good cohesive story. But I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was your age and younger even probably, and so that was my first attempt at writing something. My first proper script was the Hillsborough play, Waiting for Hillsborough, and that was, again, it just came down to, I wanted to write a story. I wanted to make my contribution to this narrative. I was really affected by this film I saw about the same subject because it educated me. I got the whole thing wrong. You wouldn't remember it, but it was a football disaster, 96.
The Hillsborough Stadium, yeah.
And the media really went to town on the Liverpool fans, and they convinced everybody in the South that they were responsible, and the police had done nothing wrong. And I bought into it. I was only a kid, you know. I was I can't remember how old I was when it happened, but I was a kid, and but I believed it, you know. And when I kind of found out the reality, this is the power of drama, you know. This is the power of well-written, well-told drama. And when I watched that movie, the Jimmy McGowan film directed by Charles McDougall, brilliant director.
Right, yeah.
I couldn't sleep for like 2 days, and I basically that sort of drew me into the subject. I read every book and report I could find out about it, and I thought, wow, this is really bad. I got this so wrong. I couldn't live with myself that I had expressed the views I had and said the things I'd said, even though I was a teenager when that was the case. So I thought I'd have to readdress this, and I sat down and I wrote a play about two families waiting for news on the day, and I kind of took on the narrative and tried to do something a bit different with it, but also used that play to educate audiences in the South that might not have seen the film, and we put it on and it sold out pretty quick, and that play won me my first award. So I got passionate about something. I wrote a story about it. I didn't think about the medium. There was a theatre up the road. I wanted to do a play. I was already attending an acting class up the road and recruited some of the actors from that. We put an ad in the stage, I think, for the rest, and got a gazillion replies. And, you know, I was just looking for people that could do a Liverpool accent, really. And that was the first production I did. And, you know, that had a budget by the way, of I think it's about 600 quid, and I've still got the brochure from it, and even from day one, with anything I was doing, I wanted it to look professional.
Right.
Those
Sorry.
were,
When did you write this?
1990. I think I wrote it in 96. We performed it in 97.
So this is about a decade after the.
Yeah, a decade
yeah.
after, but not that long after the drama program. I think was screened in 96.
Right.
96 or 95. And if you haven't seen it, the whole thing's on YouTube. You can watch it for free.
Yeah. I've seen the odd documentary about Hillsborough, but obviously now this is 30 odd years after, so there's a lot more.
You need to watch the movie.
Mm.
If you haven't seen it, not only is it, mate, you will not watch it without crying.
Yeah.
But not only is it a really good film, but it's an education in terms of good writing, good direction, good acting, amazing performances. It's available online. It's an official thing, so you're not pirating or anything.
No, right.
They've had it up on YouTube for absolutely ever, I think, because they just want people to be able to see it. And there you go. There's the link for it in chat. And that was one of the first films produced by Nicholas Schindler, who we mentioned earlier. Who I remember saw me at one of the anniversaries, and looked over at me and went, "Who is that guy? I remember him from last year." I think I then became as the long-haired bloke who wrote the play, because I had long hair back then.
The short-haired bloke who writes.
So I've never really, this whole thing about jumping mediums, I've never really thought about it, to be honest. I'm more interested in making films because they're around forever. But before digital, I couldn't make films, so I did plays. Because at the end of the day, if you're a writer and a director, your primary job is to tell a story and to engage your audience, take them on an emotional journey, get a response from them. I mean, the biggest kick for any director is sitting at the back of an auditorium or the back of a theatre and watching your audience laugh or cry because of something you created or something you wrote. There is no bigger drug on the planet than that.
This is something we were so looking forward to being able to do once we finished Girl Who Skated with Ash helped us with.
But you can.
We will eventually, but
you can do it now. You can go and make something on. Look, Michael Sheen and David Tennant obviously got together and said, in lockdown, and they made Staged. And okay, Staged is really good because, listen, these are guys at the A-list and they're kind of sending themselves up, which is brilliant. I followed David Tennant's career from day one, by the way, when he was in Taking Over the Asylum, which if you haven't seen, you should watch. And he's my favourite Doctor Who of the new Doctors. And, they obviously just got together and said, what can we do? And there's no reason why you can't be having that conversation with your mates and making something. Okay, you're not going to get an audience of 5 million, but that doesn't matter. Every time you do a project, you're going to learn something. So you might as well be being proactive in lockdown and doing something than doing nothing.
Yeah, I quite luckily, Hugo's job that he has at the minute, I don't know if he mentioned it, but he has to.
Of course he did.
Yeah, so I get to help him out with that, which is like,
oh, nice.
It's really nice just being able to.
You seem to be talking about Hugo quite a lot. It should be called the
Hugo.
It's
pretty
show,
difficult not to, really. Like,
he's paying me sponsorship money for us to mention his name every time you do it.
Well, I might get to meet you because I've just offered to be in a film of this, so you never know. We might be there. I told him I'd do a cameo in this.
He's found a way to just embed himself.
Yeah.
There was one more thing I wanted to ask you though.
Go for it.
So, this actually sort of follows on from what we were saying about. So the film that me and Ash worked on together that we made for I made for my final year at university, not Ash's, but we're now, I think we've finished it, and so we filmed it back in March of last year, and and just because of pandemic and everything, our post-production experience has just been it's been the same, just so much longer. So, you've got people living in different places. We've had to send files to different different countries just because of where people live and like who's got more powerful computers for doing X and
yeah, I can relate to all that stuff.
so well, this is what I wanted to ask you. So we think we're done now. We're about to upload it somewhere just to have a once over and check. But I wanted to ask you because I think I saw one of your current projects is in post. Am I right in thinking at the minute?
Well, it depends if you believe what you read on social media. Why don't you tell me what the project is and I'll tell you the truth.
It was the horror movie. Is it Hexed? It was in pre or post?
Oh, right, no, Hexed, right, okay, so Hexed is a project of James Bushes, who did Cannibals and Carpet Fitters, great director, really lovely guy. And actually how I met was I promoted his film on a blog that I did. That's how we met. And after he did Cannibals and Carpet Fitters, I said, look, if you ever want a writer, let me know. I'd be happy to write something for you. And he came to me and said, I've got this idea. And he said, the working title is Witch Coach. He said, that's not the title, but basically it's Die Hard on a coach with witches.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. And he gave me a briefing and he threw in some characters. You know, he wanted this woman and this guy, and then I had two soldiers on the coach, and I threw in some other characters. You know, he had some key scenes he wanted, and I said, okay. So he kind of gave me a list of stuff he wanted, and Yulia Romanova, it's an actress producer, is working on it with him as well, and she had some ideas as well. And then I basically went away and I wrote the first draft. And it's one of those projects where it looks like they got the funding, then they didn't. There was another road. Oh, the money's there. No, it's not. And because it's all shot in one location, a road and a coach, basically. I think there's a bit at the coach station at the beginning and a bit in a farm or something. But, you know, so I mean, you could shoot it for $6 million if your cast was Michael Sheen and David Tennant, but it's obviously a movie that can be shot for under 100K. And I mean they're actively looking for the money as we speak, and as many people are for many projects. So it's not in post production.
No, right. Sure. So well, my question was about just seeing if a lot of other people's problems are they just like how ours were, in that everything's just taking so much longer, or like are there obstacles as it brought up?
It would be better if I talk about the journey.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is a feature film that I wrote specifically from probably my best friend in the acting community, and probably one of my best friends, full stop, Jason Flemyng, who I know is going to be watching this. In fact, he texted me just now and said, because I thought Ashley was
saying don't swear and where's the link?
He literally has texted me just now and said send. And sorry, I just have to say it's not live.
Just blame it on the fake American, not American, and it's fine. Yeah. Just blame it.
But I wrote it as a present for him. We already had an existing friendship, and actually it was because of that friendship that I just wanted to write him a script where he was the lead as a thank you present. It wasn't necessarily that I was going to direct it. He ended up doing a supporting role in it because right before we were due to shoot, and it was all set in Greece, flights, crew, hotels, all booked. He got a job, and he just had kids, just had twins. Went right through the middle of the shoot. They paid an obscene amount of money, and he phoned me up and said, "Look, I've been offered this thing. I'm going to say no because I want to do your thing, but I'm going to take hell over this." And I was like, I do not want to be the cause of grief in this man's marriage. So I was like, there's no way you're going to do that. So we had a conversation about how can he still be in the film, but you know, we make this work. So he came out and did 2 days. And then on the second shoot, because we went to Greece for 2 weeks twice, on the second shoot, he was filming the TV show called The Missing. He asked them if he could have the weekend off. They said no. He said, fine, I'm going back to the UK. He caught a flight to Greece. We booked a speedboat for him to bring him out to the island so he could do 2 days. And he went back in the speedboat and then flew back again. And you'll see in The Missing, in one section of The Missing, he suddenly had to tan. and that's
Oh
because
right,
we
that's because
went-
you're up to yours.
yeah.
Right.
But the post production for Journey was an absolute nightmare because me and the editor were doing it on my old computer. It was very slow, and we kept running out of storage space, and it kept crashing. And in the end, I had to buy a new computer. We actually had to do a crowdfunder, and I had to buy a new computer, which is the one to my right that's now also old and slow, and edit the film on that. So we actually had to buy new hardware. And then, get this, when we did the premiere, for whatever reason, that file got exported in mono. And we didn't realise until half an hour to go. We were in the cinema going berserk. What's wrong? We tested this before on a different screen. I don't get it, you know. And when they made, there was a couple of fine adjustments made, and somehow somebody didn't notice the export was on mono settings. Why? I've no idea. It was never on mono on any of the other previous exports. We never touched it. We don't know how that happened. So we had our premiere in fucking mono. Can you believe it? I had 450 people there, and you know, you're sitting there and you're like, oh, best foot forward, and the sound. You just know the sound is awful. And the cinema cranked it up.
Yeah.
Like, so the speakers.
You can't miss it, can you?
You know, I mean, there's always something that goes wrong at a premiere, always, and that was our thing. And yeah, you know, so we had a lot of issues with post. We had a couple of grading dropouts that only showed up at the premiere. That, you know, in the edit suite they weren't there. You know, gremlins, you call them gremlins. And then, you know, sometimes when you do the playback, they're there, and sometimes they're not. You get those things. It happens. It's just technology. It's not infallible.
Ruben, I can't talk to post for like everything in the pandemic, but I do know a few people that have worked on stuff, and it is the time thing, like you said.
Yeah.
A friend of mine helped on the edit of you know, that Leeds United documentary on Amazon.
Yeah.
So
I haven't seen it, but
yeah. So he helped on season 1 and 2, and season 2 was happening during the pandemic. So not just the editing, but the filming. And they said that for them, it was taking sort of twice as long, if not more, in the edit, because they had to, with people's locations, like you're saying, do an edit, make a change, upload it, send it to someone who's in a different place. They would then eventually watch it after downloading it, get the feedback, email feedback. Then the next day they would go and do the edit based on the feedback. So just on that alone, it added on double time simply from notes to then going back into the edit suite.
It just sounds so grueling. You really have to be dedicated to get through.
You should, but never screen it publicly until you're 110% sure it's ready. Because one of the things we did, we were talking about deadlines. Ashley and I were talking about deadlines earlier. And one of the things I did to make sure that we got the film ready was that we set a premiere date. And I remember it was the 22nd of November, 2014, I think it was. The day Kennedy was shot. Interesting woman. And we started the edit in July, and we thought that would be plenty of time. And the first 6 weeks, we lost everything. So 6 weeks, we like I said, it kept crashing. We had to start again from scratch. And it, you know, it's a 2-hour feature film, and we had a lot of footage. We had scenes we had to cut. We had one whole character we had to cut from the edit. The scene just wasn't working. There's nothing wrong with the scene, but it just wasn't working where it should go, and we couldn't find anywhere else for it to go, so it had to go. And you know, editing a feature film is a pretty grueling, quite boring process. You'll get so sick of your movie because you've seen it. Times.
It was hard enough doing it for something that's only 10 minutes long, let alone.
Yeah, and I mean, we were talking about what we do in the shadows earlier. Jermaine Clements and Taika Waititi's great movie. They had 195 hours of improvised footage on that to work for 195 hours to edit down to a 95 or 100-minute movie, however long it is.
I wonder if
195.
They told themselves that they'd do that though only because they did all Flight of the Conchords together, before that.
Tyker didn't work on that. That was Jermaine and Brett McKenzie.
Did he not? I thought he might have directed a couple of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the show. Yeah, the TV show. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, not just the band, but
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe they thought like, I want maybe some of those episodes with just hours long of improv as well, so they practiced.
Well, I do know they
all
wrote
that stuff.
They wrote the script, but then they decided not to show the script to the actors.
Right.
So they had a script as a backup for this is a feature film. I don't know about the TV show. I suspect the TV show is a bit more regimented.
I think it is. I've seen it, and it's good, and it like sticks to the same vein. But I think, yeah,
it lacks something that the feature film had.
Yeah.
And basically is the cast.
Yeah.
The new cast are good. I like them. I like the new cast. It took a while for them to grant me. I like them, but we could talk about Jermaine Clement's career all day. But I love those guys though. Everything they do, and Tyker is just a phenomenal talent, amazing. Hunting for the Wilder People and all of his Shark versus Eagle.
Yeah,
those films are great. Tell him justice is coming. All right, Justin. I'll tell you. Brilliant.
It is,
brilliant. What a great moment of cinema that was.
It seems to hit the nail on the head, pretty much.
Do you have a last question? Because I think we have another chap waiting.
No. I had those two, and we rolled off into so much that I'm.
You're gonna go watch Flight of the Conchords.
I keep forgetting we're doing an interview. It just feels like a group of mates talking about their favourite comedy.
Isn't that what you want, though? Really?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It needs to be a bit more concise.
Well,
look,
thank you.
If you ever need any advice, Ruben, just drop me a message. I'm on Facebook, and you probably don't know what that is because you're quite young, but
I was the Facebook generation, really. Now it's been taken over by the older generation.
Yeah.
It's been taken over by an advertising generation, sadly. But I am there. I've got a work account there. You can get in touch with me. Just drop me a message. I'll add you. And then if you ever need any advice, just give me a shout.
Well, thank you so much. Hope to hear from you guys soon. Have a good one.
All right.
Cool. Thanks, Ruben. Take care, buddy. Bye.
Okay.
Right, let's bring in Nathan. Final one. Poor guy. I hope he's still there.
You didn't have any women. It's all men.
These are the people that came through, man.
Wow.
Nathan, how we doing? Thanks for waiting.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Pleasure. We just had Hugo on. Ruben's been on. They talk a
Yeah.
lot.
Is that a Mandalorian shirt?
No, it's not. It's an old one. It's Pulp Fiction mixed with Star Wars.
Mate, hang on. I've got to turn my computer around. Actually, there's some Star Wars games over here.
Oh yeah. I can see them.
But then if I turn this, just make sure I don't knock it. If I turn this a bit more, you can see it. Behind my computer is a Lego Death Star.
Amazing.
There we go.
Wow.
Amazing. Filmmakers.
The office is so cool. How was Ruben just on?
Ruben was just on. We had Hugo on a while earlier, so they've asked some questions around, I guess, the writing process and how Lance maybe picks, what medium to write on. So we've kind of covered that. But
yeah, ask me a different question.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know what they've already asked you, but let me know. I've only got a few questions.
Sure. Well, hit up your questions, and if we've already covered them, then we'll just say no next.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Earlier section of video, and then Ashley will edit in a graphic that will give you a time code on.
Exactly. Go for it, Nathan. What's your question?
I got a few questions. First one, I was when Hugo told me about you last night. I read up on your Wikipedia page.
That appeared mysteriously after I gave. And called me and said, "Have you just written a Wikipedia page?" And I was like, "No, I don't even know. I'm not very. I have to admit, I'm not very technical when it comes to like designing websites and all that shit. I'm an actor's director. When the DOP starts talking about all the different lighting readings and stuff, and I say, great, that's fantastic. This is how I want it to look. Can you do that? yeah. Very good, thanks. Because that's their job, man. You know, let them do their thing. That's why they're called director of photography. And if I wanted to be a DOP, I would have gone into that realm. So I'm not. So I wouldn't have the first clue. It took me ages to actually work out how to go in and edit a Wikipedia page, and I had to have a friend come round and do it with me. And because they just quoted loads of my answers were on this interview, and I talked about the time I had the blood clot in my brain, and
I saw that.
And I'd worked on a show that was really stressful, and I didn't realise that I had this massive abscess that had grown in my brain during the course of that production. Was causing me stress, giving me all these headaches. And a couple of months after the production, I collapsed and I had a stroke, which is why my mouth is slightly one-sided and why I've got this big scar on my thumb here. And I've got a similar scar to that in 2 places in my brain, which means I've got a bit of a short attention span, tendency to waffle, probably, maybe that's a factor, I don't know. I've got really short memory as well. I'm terrible with remembering things, I have to write things down. And for a while I had balance issues and all sorts of shit. So the fact that I've done all the things I've done since then is nothing short of amazing, but because I've been able to do them in my own time. So I'm lucky in that sense.
Well, I was going to
what was on there, Nathan? What did you see? What was the...
Well, I had to edit a load of that out because it was all on there, and I was like, fuck, they put all this shit up.
I think it was like in the taking a break. I'm not sure. I just gave it like a quick...
the original heading for that was illness, and I was like, "What the fuck?" So I had to write to Wikipedia and say, you know, and I didn't mind some of it being on there because it wasn't like it was a big secret. I was in intensive care for 3 months, so but you know,
there's a tone. There's a certain tone that you know.
Yeah, I got a couple of bits of it knocked off, and I just left the rest. Thought, fuck it, I guess it's kind of cool to have a Wikipedia page.
For Nathan to find.
Just for me, I'm the only person who's ever read it.
No, actually, you're not. I can tell you now, you're not. But anyway.
Yeah, I had a question about speaking of you like being able to do things in your own time. Hugo also sent me the link to the journey behind the scenes video, which I assume was like a prize for people who helped fund that. But
that was. Did you watch it? The making of?
I couldn't watch the whole thing because I didn't have time. But I watched like the first 10 to 15 minutes.
I forgot you're under 25, so you've only got an attention span.
No.
So you can only watch very short things. I know.
At like 3 a.m.
I'm being facetious now, but I mean, it's a real big ask these days when you send someone a link for a movie.
Yeah.
I always say to them, can you promise me that you'll turn your phone off and watch it all in one go? And they say yeah, but half the time I don't believe they ever do that.
No, I agree. Like, yeah.
I mean, I don't even like going to the loo when I'm watching a movie. When we're chilling out, I'm watching a film. I want to watch it like the whole thing. And you know, if I've got to go out, then I'm like, oh, pause it, because I'm really into this. I need to. But what was your question anyway?
I was just wondering.
You said, was it a perk for a crowdfunder?
Well,
yes,
it was more like what I sort of observed from watching is that you had like a crew and you went to Greece and things like that, and you're all like obviously me and Hugo and Ruben are young people and that we can sort of bounce around from one thing to another, but I assume that most of the crew had like jobs and things, and then I was wondering how do you sort of...
They did have jobs. Their job was whatever their job was on the crew.
Right, okay. Because I was wondering, how do you keep a crew filming for an extended period of time and keep everyone paid and things like that, and make sure that
with the journey, I get where you're going. With the journey, we had a very tight budget. I mean, the budget for the whole film, including post-production, came to about 55 grand. And I put about 35 of that in, and the rest was crowdfunded. Maybe I think I worked out I spent 40 in the end, and I haven't made any of that back, by the way. originally I was going to make a completely different film. This script was kind of on the back burner, and I hadn't written the script to my satisfaction. And then I met these girls, these students that were sort of very young, getting into producing. There were 5 of them, and they were all from Greece. And I just thought, you know what? I was going to make this other film in England, and I thought, if we're going to make that film in England and shoot it in 2 weeks, and the only difference of making a film in Greece for 2 weeks, just very naive thinking, by the way, was the cost of the flights and the cost of the hotels. Why don't we go and make a film in Greece? And the benefit of having everybody there was, once we were there, we were all there, you know, we're in it, we're all together, we got to live together, we got to work together, let's go for it. And we did 2 shoots of 2 weeks, so it was 4 weeks altogether, and there was a year's gap in between the 2. And the second shoot was really smooth, apart from a couple of bubbles, it was really smooth. Everybody got on so well. My biggest problem on that shoot was making sure people didn't go out drinking every night and were knackered the next day, because the camaraderie was there, that everybody got on, and, you know, they sort of didn't want the party to end. But it was great. We you know, we had some technical problems on one day in particular, but basically the problems with on the first shoot, we didn't have that. On the first shoot, I had a very divisive crew member who caused me a lot of problems, and at the end of the day, I couldn't just fire them and tell them to go home. We were in Greece, and we just had to sort of make the best of it, and it was difficult because it was and I was working with a lot of new people for the first time, and we were pulling in the same direction by the end, but it took a while to get there. And I vowed when I went back that we were not going to be like that. And I was some of the crew came back again, but some of them did not. And I was very careful about who I chose. And I had a really good, on the second shoot, I had a great first AD, and, you know, I had 2 or 3 people that were quite close friends of mine by then, who I didn't know before we did the journey. We're all on there. Alex DeBreezy, I'm going to give a shout out to as well, as a phenomenal DOP and photographer. And he was there with me sort of every day. So we, you know, the actors I knew all very well. And Jason Flemyng came back, who's one of my best mates, and just a phenomenal actor, and probably done more to help out independent film than any other person on the planet. And it was great. You know, in terms of keeping the crew away for that time, look, I think if you're doing a low budget film and a passion project, the baseline is this: you've just got to be very honest and upfront with people, tell them what it is, what the commitment is, what they can expect to get out of it, what you expect from them, and they either say yes or no.
Yeah.
And that's the same for actors who may or may not choose to work on unpaid productions. I have to do a lot of work on my stuff, in fact, nearly all of it, unpaid, to get my stuff out there and just to push my career along. No one's going to do it for me.
No.
You know, no one's going to do it except for me. I have to get out there. I have to generate stuff. I have to generate opportunities. I'll only do a project that I think is worth my time, whether it's mine or someone else's. Whether I can believe in it or I believe in them, or and I think it's worth my time. And so it was just a question of whether these people thought this project was worth their time. Now, there's a lot of people, and our crew was pretty young for the most part, or they were people that were just at a loose end and wanted to do something. And, you know, at the end of the day, we weren't saying, do you want to go and make a gangster film, mate, in Whitechapel for 2 weeks? Or would you like to come and make a film in Greece? We're going to be on an island and staying in a nice hotel for 2 weeks. And we've been sponsored by Feta, so we're going to get lots of free cheese. And so that's what happened. And we had a lot of free cheese and free petrol. We got free petrol for our shoot, which has saved us a lot of money. So, you know, it was a massive learning experience, and it was great. I'd never shot in a foreign country before. And I don't know if you've seen the sets in the film, but they're all amazing, and it was great. They were all pre-built for us before we got there. We had mountains and temples and hotels and everything. We scouted it. I went and did a scout several months earlier. In fact, I scouted 3 different islands. Terrible job. That was awful time. So if you look, there are a lot of people out there who want to make a film.
Yeah.
And there are people who are prepared to collaborate, and there are people who are born to lead. That's they've got that quality. That's what they can do. And there are a lot of people. I haven't really got a name for them, but I've met a lot of them who like the idea of working on a film, but don't like the idea of work.
Yeah.
There are so many of these people, and they talk a good talk, but they're full of it, and and I've had a couple of them, and you want to avoid those people. Always trust your gut when it comes to people. If you think, shall I give them a chance? I'd trust your gut and say no.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might be wrong, but I had to learn that lesson the hard way on a few occasions. In one particular instance, which had huge ramifications on the rest of my life. So I should have listened to my gut in the first place. But live and learn.
So always with a crew on an independent film like this, always be honest from the offset.
Absolutely. Don't promise them anything you can't deliver.
And it's the
don't promise them a copy of the film because you haven't finished the film yet.
Yeah. So it's the passion, and it's the passion that you've got, and your ability to lead people and pull the project through that keeps them going, as opposed to promising them this and that.
And the subject matter, maybe, Nath. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, look,
but that can be a part too.
Why are you making what you're making? You need to be able to answer that question quickly, fluently, with passion and conviction. Because why are people going to get on that ship that's leaving harbour, the film cruise ship?
Yeah.
If you can't give them a good reason to jump on board, and I think there's a lot to be said. And again, we talked about this earlier in terms of making a verbal commitment, and this is very difficult at the minute because we're in this kind of mire of humanity's making, and it is of humanity's making, and we don't know, our freedoms have been curtailed, and it'd be interesting to see if they're completely restored at the other end of this. I have my own views on that, so you're kind of, at the minute, you're limited to sort of doing stuff online, or but the last chap that we were talking to has been in some sort of post-production nightmare. Well, good news is he's got more time to work through those nightmares and work out those kinks and get it as good as it can be. So there's lots of things you can be doing during lockdown.
Yeah, I mean, I've just shot a film and got that funded by the local council, and we're editing that now, and that obviously had its challenges. But
feature or short?
It's just a short. I've only done shorts so far, but the reason why I'm asking you about the journey is because I want to move from shorts to a feature with a budget of around 30 to 50k, which is obviously crazy. Like, I'm only 21.
Mate, it's not. You can make a feature film for 30k if you will. Absolutely, no problem.
Because I mean, I like what you said about some people talk the talk and some people actually do it, and I'm one of the people where I want to do it, and I've been planning on doing this for a long time, and that's why I made a film during lockdown. I've got 2 more coming up. I will never stop until I've got this, the feature film. And I'm curious, like, where did the 40k that you spent, how would you say that was roughly distributed, if you can remember, any advice?
I think we ended up spending around 7 in post-production, premiere, posters, this, that. There are unforeseen things. At one point, for example, all of our drives were full and we didn't have any more space. And if something had crashed and my computer was being wonky, we didn't have a backup. So, at one point we bought a RAID. That was another 500 or something. There were things like that. The post-production sound, in the end, that cost about 2K. We went to a professional sound mixing studio, had the whole film running, mixed all the levels, did all the tracks and all the rest of it. So that was a couple of K. I think it was a K for the first, for the main thing, but then we spent another K on various other things. The flights and the food were probably the biggest. The flights, the food, the transport that we didn't get for free. We blagged it. We got like free. 2 of the ferry companies in Greece sponsored us, which is why we got big shots of their boats in the movie. In fact, I probably would have put those shots in anyway. And they were great. And it was a behind the scenes video of me actually steering the ferry ship at one point, and the captain going, "Don't worry, it's all automated. You can't crash." And I was like, "Oh right, okay, good." It's always the things you don't think of as well. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you one thing. We spent a fortune on water, an absolute fortune on water. And on the second shoot, we had this religious ritual in the morning where all the water bottles got issued and they were all labelled. So everybody knew who everybody's water bottle was. Whereas we were getting all these water bottles discarded all over the set because we were working in these really extreme temperatures. It was really hot. I nearly fainted on set at one point. I was, we had to make sure everybody was constantly hydrated and no one got sunburn. And, so there were things like that. We were drinking loads and loads and loads of water. And we also were sponsored by Red Bull. So, like we had loads of crates of free Red Bull. As soon as it was cut, I was like straight behind the nearest tree, as I was drinking like 7-8 cans of Red Bull a day. And on that first shoot, I was so stressed. By the end of the second week, I was smoking 75 cigarettes a day. I don't smoke now, by the way. As soon as I got back from Greece, cold turkey. Didn't smoke a single thing.
For your sponsorships, Lance, did you just reach out to them cold, or was there already some kind of overlap there? I guess for someone like
No, we just wrote to. We made a list of them and ones that would be useful.
So would you advise someone from my positions to seek sponsorships around the locations that we plan to shoot and things like that?
A good producer, right? And this will answer your question, is capable of doing one of two things, or an associate producer. They will either get you money from wherever they can, or they will source you things for free, therefore saving you money. Now, those things may be locations. They may be 10 crates of energy drinks, which, always try and do things for your cast and crew to let them know you care. When the cast turned up on the shoot, I wanted like a fresh bowl of fruit in everybody's room, and this and this, and a fridge full of snacks and all the rest of it. And that wasn't a huge sum of money off our budget, but I think it showed that we cared. And actually, on the day that they were all arriving, the two producers that were supposed to do that went and fucked off and did something else. So I was really angry, running around trying to sort it out, and wasn't quite as spot on as I wanted it to be. But there was little things like that, and like when we were abroad, and again, always be honest with everybody. We told everybody up front, we're paying for your flights, we're paying for your accommodation, you're getting a breakfast, you're getting a lunch, but we didn't have enough budget to cover dinners. But I said, look, I will take everybody out for dinner one night, take the hit on the credit card. And I did that one night on the first shoot, and I did it another night on the the second shoot. And then Jason Flemyng, when he came over on the first shoot, he covered a lunch for everybody. On the second shoot, we all went out for a dinner. I went up to pay the bill. He paid it already. And, so there were a lot of nice touches like that showed that we cared. And that we were looking after people. And I pushed people, but I didn't push them too hard. There was one time on the first shoot when Alex Tabrizi had been working so hard, and he was kind of doing several different jobs, that I could see he was about to collapse. It was one of the days it was really hot. And I said, Alex, get in the car with so-and-so, go back to the hotel, lie down for the rest of the afternoon. We needed him on set. And my AD at the time I could see he was fuming, not fuming because of that decision. He was fuming because he wanted to be the one back in the hotel. And but I know it was the right call. I could just see the guy was going to pass out. And I just go back, lie down for the afternoon. And then after that, he was golden. And I mean, he worked his arse off on the shoot all the time. Another guy, Richard Roberts, climbing up and down mountains every 5 minutes, and you had to keep an eye on him. He'd be shooting off, and we were climbing up mountains. It was crazy health and safety stuff, and I was really conscious of the fact my DOP had his kid with him, and we went up and shot on the top of this mountain, and he insisted on bringing the kid, and the kid's only 5, I think, or 4 years old. So I got him to write me a handwritten document absolving the production and myself of any responsibility of him taking the child. And the reason he wanted his child to go is he was teaching his child from day one to be a DOP.
Well,
so he referred to his kid as his assistant. It's quite funny. But I was so worried that something was going to happen with the kid, because that mountain was, we weren't scaling cliffs or anything, but it was little pathways with a lot of loose rocks. And so there's an amazing shot in the journey, and you can see it in the trailer at the end where the guy crosses the sun, and we got that shot on top of that mountain. So it's great. The sun's all low and it's fantastic. Of course, when we're going down the mountain, it started getting dark pretty fucking quickly, and we were like, shit, guys, we need to get down, And then in the end, we were going down in the dark for the last, I think, 150 meters or so, and it was treacherous. It was, scary. So, look after the cast and crew. I think as a director, there was only one time on that entire shoot that I lost my cool on set, and even then, it was somebody was moving constantly in the background on the set, and actress Lindsey Coulson found it distracting, and she told me, and I told this person not to move during takes. I told them twice, and they did it again, and they also had a very loud, revealing dress on and all this kind of thing, and I said, I told you not to move, and they said, oh, you're being so rude to me, Lance, and I said, no, you're being rude. You're being rude to the cast. They have to do a job, and you're distracting them. And I told you not to move during takes off the set, and that was the only time I lost my cool. And it was absolutely warranted because they were completely out of order. But even then, I probably should have taken her to one side, completely away from where no one else could hear, and had a quiet word with her. But there wasn't time for that. We were on a schedule, and we were already behind at that point. So, it was like day 5 or whatever, very hot. We were all under a lot of pressure. She was obviously feeling it as well. And afterwards, it was all fine, and we were fine, and things carried on, and we had a conversation about it, and it was okay. But sometimes these things are warranted, but it's never good. When I'm directing, I try never to give anyone a dressing down or get into an argument, because that's not helpful for anybody. And also, I think a lot of young directors, when they're directing actors, they make the mistake that if they're not doing any directing, then they must be doing something wrong. If your actors are good, all your job is, and they're doing the right thing. Your job basically is to just assure them what they've done is great and carry on. Thank you very much. If you don't need to give them any notes, don't.
Yeah.
I've seen directors constantly giving people notes, and it's like, what are you doing?
The film that I've just done now has Bhaskar Patel, who's in Emmerdale. He plays. He's been in about 700 episodes. So he obviously has a lot of experience. And I know
he's
when we're
probably
on
worked with a few friends of mine. I've had a few friends on that show. So
yeah, when we're on set, I noticed that because I'm like a young director and stuff. Like I was talking too much, and he was like Nathan, just like you can calm down. Like I'll do, you know. So I think there's always like a balance, and you can see that because he was so experienced and I'm relatively inexperienced.
Yeah, and you've got to trust in your casting as well. I mean, listen, if you've got an actor straight out of drama school who's not very confident, but they've got the look, exactly the character that you want, but you know, maybe the acting isn't quite there, you're probably going to need to give them a lot more gentle coaxing. But even then, it's more kind of, how about, okay, that was good, but how about let's try it like this now? And can you just bring that up a bit or do this? And one of the mistakes I made on the journey was, and I often talk about this because I feel like I need to. Dickon Tolson, who played the second lead, who runs The Outcast with me, is the other teacher. We had a long-standing friendship, but I'd only ever directed him on stage. I'd never directed him on a film. I'd never directed him on a short film. So I kind of wrote the character for him. So I just let him do his thing. And I was very happy with him. And I didn't give him a lot of direction, occasionally a little bit. And then when we got into the edit suite, I realised everything that he'd done was just a little bit too big. And that was partly because on not every day, some days we didn't have a monitor that was working. We had a monitor a lot of the time. But I'm used to kind of just watching the actors. It's quite, when you started off as a stage director, it's quite hard to constantly remember. You really need to look at the monitor, not just look past the monitor and look at the actors, because the monitor is what you're recording. So you really kind of need to see what you're recording. And I was like, yeah, he's great, that's fine. And I managed to edit it in a way that I brought it down a bit. But I said to him, if you ever get any criticism, it was my job to spot that and bring you down. That was not your job. You didn't do anything wrong. You just gave me what you thought I wanted, and that was what I wanted. But if I had been more on the ball and we'd been working together for the first time, I was too used to him, you see, and I didn't bring him down. So yeah, and I kind of felt I did him an injustice, because I think he would have given a much better performance if I'd given him a bit more direction. I was too comfortable with it. That's a learning curve for me. And you know, not many directors, big or small, wherever they are in their career, will go on an interview and talk about the time where they let an actor down. But I will, because it's something I've learned. And I think it's quite helpful to talk about it and for you to hear it, you know. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes when you're my age, even with the experience I've got. You'll never stop learning about directing. You know, you're never a director that knows everything.
No. I saw a video of Steven Spielberg saying, even when it, you know, it is current stage, and someone said, like, how do you find directing now? Is it easy? And he says, no, I get terrified by every film that I do because it's a new experience, and you're always learning. So if you know, but I do.
First day on set is exciting, but yeah, it's always terrifying.
So if you wanted to not do a crowdfunding route and you didn't have enough money to fund it yourself, do you have any advice for like third-party funding? Or
that's the $1 million question that gets asked at every Q&A on every film course and interview, and there isn't a straight up answer, because everybody, you know, gets money from different places. Cousin Bob comes into an inheritance. He hears about nephew Joe, who's, you know, friends with Nathan, who's making a film. Joe's in the film. He hears they need 20 grand for the film. Boom, next thing you know, Nathan has 20 grand. I mean, Simon Cox, who did Kaleidoscope Man, which was a kind of, you know, it's a fun, low budget B movie in which I did an acting cameo, got to drive around this tank, as we were talking about earlier. It was great fun. And he got money from loads of different sources. He did crowdfunding, he did this, he did that. But I know he had an investor that just found him online. And Simon's a lovely guy, very passionate, you know, and really, he's very passionate about what he does. And he, you know, he is a lovely guy, and he comes across that way. And he was at the premiere of my film. He shot a lot of the behind the scenes footage, and he just had people that would invest in him. $5,000 here, $5,000 there. You know, I don't know the numbers, but it was that kind of money.
Right.
I think it's about putting yourself out there and meeting people.
Right.
Investment from film never comes from one particular source. There are these companies that are set up to do tax relief, and a lot of that has stopped now. And you might have heard of NCIS and SCIS and all that stuff, and if you haven't heard of that stuff, I'm surprised. But a lot of that has all been closed down now because there was a lot of dodgy tax rules going on and all sorts of iffy stuff, and I don't know how viable that route is. There are several financing companies that are set up specifically to finance movies. I think Goldfinch is one that comes to mind, but they tend to work with existing people and have existing relationships. Nothing wrong with you trying to knock on the front door, but people who get investors rightly become very closely guarded. I've had an investor stolen from me, which is one of the worst things you could imagine happening. And it happened to a friend of mine as well, and another friend of his. And, you know, it's a cutthroat world out there.
Yeah.
So when people do get money, they're often reluctant to say exactly how they got it or where it came from. But it's just going to be a variety of sources. There isn't a one-trick pony of how do you open the war chest. You've got all the different routes, traditional funding. You already said you've got money off of a local council. That's great. That's an existing relationship which you need to build on. You need to come back to them with an absolute dog's bollocks finished project. Nothing half-hearted. I'm telling you this now. This is gold advice. Don't come when you're finished with your thing that you're doing, whatever you're short. Don't show it to them until you're going to show them the best version of it that you're ever going to have.
Yeah.
You're not going to show them a half-finished version. You're not going to show them a trailer. None of that stuff. And you are going to arrange a special screening for them, whether it's online or whether it's you know, you're going to hire out a screening room, or whether they've got one and you're just going to go there with a DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, or a stick or whatever. You're going to arrange a screening for them, and you're going to make them attend, because these are the people who said yes and gave you money. And they may be the same people who are sitting on the board next year. And if they're not the same people, but so-and-so is going to be sitting on the board, you're going to find out who that person is, and you're going to get them to come to your screening as well.
Right.
Because you are the people they've invested in. They should want to see what you've done with the money. And if they don't see that as part of their job, you're going to make it their job. You're going to insist on, you're going to shame them into coming, whatever it takes.
Right.
Because they're the people who open that war chest for you. And maybe you can go back there the following year. Or
so they might know other people as well.
Exactly.
So it's like whenever you've met networked with someone, or you know, you've built a relationship, keep the relationship, and always show them the best, because then they'll invest in you as a person as opposed to like a project.
I think so. I mean, it all depends on their criteria, of course, and you know, but always build on existing relationships. I mean, I've got a great relationship with about 5 actors that I would call one step below A-list. You know, they're not the top 100 people working in Hollywood, but they always work. You put their picture up, everybody knows who they are. And these are actors I can send a script any day of the week and they'll read it. So I don't send them a script every day, because then I wouldn't have that relationship with them. I'll wait until I've got something really good for them to read, and that there's a role in there for them.
Yeah.
And you know, then I send it to them. And I've had I'm very helpful with other directors and things, but I've had other directors come to me, can you give a script to this person? Can you give a script to this person that they know that I work with? And I've said no. And the reason I've said no is very simple. One is because that actor has told me not to do that, and I've never done it anyway, but I had a conversation with them about it, like, people have been asking me. I told them no, was that the right thing to do? And they're like, yeah, thanks, please don't. And the other thing is, I have an existing relationship with that person, which I worked very hard to nurture and maintain. And why should I give that up to somebody else? And it's the same with your funding sources as well. No one's going to give me a leg up with their funding source because they need it for their own project. People will collaborate. There are a lot of good collaborators out there, and I'm one of them. And I'm collaborating with about 4 other indie directors at the minute: James Bush, Patrick Ryder, Adam, who made the film Lucid. He's just optioned a script of mine, and we've been doing some rewrites on that together. And you've got to be prepared to collaborate. And when you're a writer director, you must be prepared to write some stuff and not direct it. And you must be prepared to direct stuff that you have not written and leave the script alone. Because as a writer, if you give a script to an actor and they say, oh yeah, no, that's kind of good, but do you mind if I rewrite all my lines? You'd be pretty fucked off if they said that to you. So don't think that other people aren't offended if you do that to them. I'm doing another project with another group of friends of mine, 3 really, really lovely people who run a company called Tripod Productions, Jake, Joe and Ellie. And they wanted me to work on a script of theirs. The idea was really loose. I came up with a completely different idea for them, which I knew for them was perfect and ticked all their boxes. And they had a big change that they wanted to make in the script, and I really didn't want to make it. I thought, But then I had to ask myself, why was I writing this in the first place? And the reason I wrote it in the first place was to give them a project, because I like them and I want to work with them. And I wanted them to be in roles that they were happy to do. So I sort of looked at the change they suggested, and I tweaked it a bit, and I did some things, and I thought, you know what, we can make this work. We can stop being so stubborn, Lance. We can make this work. And so even I have to tell myself that sometimes, that's collaborating. You've got to know. I've got projects I wouldn't let anybody change a single word of. They are very passionate to me. I believe in them. I know that they're where they need to be, but those are few and far between now. On everything else, I'm always prepared to move things, and you need to be. You need to approach the process of writing and directing as an organic process, which is a collaboration, and which other people will want to give input in. And that's very true in the industry as well. You will have more freedom now in your career than you're ever going to have later. So the sooner you learn the art of collaboration, the better, because if you plan on writing for television, you're going to have 20 people telling you what, giving you an opinion. And sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it's not. Shane Meadows, do you know who he is, the director?
Yeah.
He will tell you himself that his worst film of his career is the one that had all the meddling. And he's very unhappy with that movie. I'm not going to say which one it is. He said it in his own interviews, so you can do the chasing up on that. And I knew Shane quite well. We were both living in Nottingham when he started his career. And when I watched that film of his, because I watched all of his stuff and I love it. He's a very talented guy and does great stories and has really carved his own body of work. He's like a modern Ken Loach, And but that one film in particular didn't hang together very well. And when I saw the interview and he said, yeah, and after that, he did. After that, he made Dead Man's Shoes. He went back to his roots, where he could just do something he wanted to do. And Dead Man's Shoes is a great film, one of his best actually. And he said, "Well, that's because I didn't have 6 producers all telling me something different to do with every scene. You know,
Yeah.
I can't work like that."
Mhm.
So I think going forward, he made sure that he didn't have that problem.
Yeah. Is it a lot different in the theatre world? Because am I right in thinking you did theatre quite a lot
I've-
earlier on?
I've written and directed 14 plays now. The last one of which was this one. And we did that. That was me going back to the stage for the first time in 10 years.
Wow.
And we did that in October 2019. I'm not sure if you can remember, but that's back in the time we used to be able to meet and do things. And that was great. It was brilliant experience. Loved it, and it actually made me want to do another play, which I wrote in the meantime.
What's the process of a sort of a theatre script or playwright getting that produced and made into a play? Like, is that a lot different to film and TV, or is there?
There are some similar hurdles to climb, and then there's some stuff that's very different. I mean, you've got a lot of different avenues you can chase. So you could, I think every year places like the Royal Court and the one I've just sent a play into, the Bush, which is being the artistic director there, is a wonderful woman called Lance Nielsen, who directed one of the best plays I've ever seen at the Donmar a couple of years ago. I'm trying to remember the name of the show now, but I'm going to Google it so I don't do her an injustice. But it's different depending on where you go and what you're trying to do. Now in London, there is a very, very active fringe theatre scene, small venues, 100 seats or less, where you can contact the person running that theatre and say, "I've got a play, it's about blah, blah. Are you interested? When do you have a free slot?" And most of these theatres, let's pretend the pandemic hasn't happened for a minute, most of these theatres book about 6 months ahead. Sometimes a whole year is programmed ahead. So you need to think a year ahead, really.
Yeah.
A typical time for me, from writing a play to rehearsing it to putting it on and everything, is around 4 months. And I used to do 2 of them a year. And I used to do one at the beginning of the year and one at the end. One in just coming into spring and one in the autumn. And I did that for 6 years in a row, I think, until I had the brain thing. And I was lucky. I was kind of attached to a local theatre. They would give me initially I had to hire the space, and then after that they would give me a box office split because they had they had conviction in what I was doing. They believed I would pull it off, and I always did the best job possible. But these productions were all unfunded.
Right.
They were all unfunded. The money made from one basically became the budget for the next. These were fringe productions, so it was very rare that we were able to pay anybody. I think usually the stage manager or the lighting person was the person who got paid. I've never been paid for any of the plays I've directed ever, and I've directed 14 plays. Never been paid for writing any of them. I did win a couple of awards, one of which came with I guess it was called a writing bursary, but that was just the award. I didn't, no one paid me. So it's better to get in with a kind of a good theatre. I mean, most towns have usually got, that alternative theatre that does all the gritty stuff, whether it's an Everyman or whichever one it is. And that's the place you want to get in with. Find out who the artistic director is there, write them a polite letter or email, badger them until they respond in the politest way possible. But, dear, blah, 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 find out who they are. Go and see a couple of their productions. I mean, obviously you can't right now, but You can go and watch stuff online. Everybody will have something online. Know who they are, know what kind of stuff they do, and I saw you did a play about blah blah. I'm working on this idea for a play about a relationship between a boy and his abusive alcoholic father. Is that something that would interest you? And if so, who and when do I submit it to?
Right.
And then if they say no, you then go and find a space where you can put it on, and you put it on yourself.
Right. Okay. That's very, very useful. I mean, I've never like looked into it, but as you were saying before, I think every route, no matter which route, it leads to somewhere else. Like I just want to take every opportunity and also create them myself, because no one's gonna hand you anything on a platter.
No,
So I
they
want to create the opportunities, not because no one's ever gonna give them to you.
And you're in it for the long haul, dude. That's the thing.
Yeah.
If you have a short-term mentality, you're gonna sell out, or you're gonna burn out, or you're gonna get bitter early.
Yeah.
You're young, keep doing your thing, and
Yeah.
there's so many different ways and avenues, and
Yeah.
it sounds so corny, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. But it is.
Stay in touch with me, Nathan. Find me on Facebook if you do have a Facebook account.
Yeah.
Just find me and add me on there, and if you've ever got any questions or you need some advice on anything, let me know. If you need an older actor for a part, I'll come and do a part for you. And give you a bit of PR on social media, whatever.
Well, thank you
worries.
thank you for all the advice, and Ash for letting me on.
Of course, good to see you.
And send me that short film when it's ready. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I might send you another one that I've already done. You might be interested in. But yeah, I appreciate all the advice. Good luck with the pilot. I hope it does eventually come together as well.
Well, I've got Kent State before that, so listen to the rest of this interview and you'll hear what that's about. And that's coming up soon in April. It's a YouTube thing.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll go then. I'll not take any more of your time.
Take it easy, Nathan. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Great stuff. What a lovely chat.
Amazing. Absolutely. Cool. Well, yeah, I'm mindful of your time. Let's touch on Kent State. You kind of mentioned it there. Let's get into that a little bit. Just talk about what's happening, and I guess plug that a little bit with where you're going with it.
So the origins of that project was I wrote a feature film, a big 3-hour-long JFK kind of movie, about the civil trial that happened in 1975 that followed the shootings in Kent State in America. If you don't know about them, this is a book called The Kent State Cover-Up. It's quite hard to get hold of now. I think it's out of print.
Right.
But Kent State was basically, in a short version, was a university, still a university in Ohio. Nixon expanded the war into Cambodia, which of course, as we know, is illegal now. The students all over various campuses protested. The war in Vietnam was already very unpopular, and the National Guard were called out at several campuses, including Kent State, Ohio. And the students there protested against the Guard's presence on campus on the Monday when they all came back from the weekend to find them all there. And the Guard kind of moved through them to disperse them, went up and over this hill, went down into this playing field, found they were boxed in, got ordered to turn around and go back. A group of them got into a huddle and had a bit of a discussion. As they came back up on the hill, one section of a platoon turned around and opened fire and shot down the hill. They wounded 9 students, paralysing one of them for life, called Dean Kaler, who's, I'd like to think of him as a friend of mine now. I've spoken to him several times recently. And they killed 4 other students. And 5 years later, the parents of the dead students, the survivors who were wounded, got together under a lawyer called Joseph Kellner and his son Robert and a whole load of other lawyers, and they took the governor of Ohio to court for breach of civil rights. And when you think about everything that's happened in America recently, because I'm always very interested in exploring the social narrative of humanity, and I'm very interested in topics of social injustice, and I think that stems right back to writing the play about Hillsborough, and I've done Marshalless and Bloody Sunday and various other things. And I'm always interested in these subjects and giving them a voice. And there was a movie made about Kent State by ABC. It was a television movie about the shootings.
But this was like early 80s, right?
Yeah, I think it was 1980. It was actually made.
Right.
Starred a friend of mine called Keith Gordon as one of the students that got killed.
Okay.
And Keith was actually, who's an actor, really quite a well-known actor. He's a director now. Fantastic actor though. Fantastic actor. He was the lead in the movie Christine, based on the book by Stephen King. He's the lead, the guy that gets possessed by the car.
Okay.
Arnie. And he was tutoring me basically, and I sent him early drafts of that script, and he would come back to me with notes. And that script, I went to LA to sell it, and I couldn't sell it, and it ended up sitting on my computer. And it's primarily a court case, and the court case is very much a footnote in history. You can't find a lot of detail about it online. There's various references to it, a little bit of information, but not a lot. And so back in the day, I contacted the Kellners. I got the lowdown from them on what happened. We spoke several times on the phone. Then I became in contact with another guy called Alan Canfora, who, very famous picture of him waving a black flag at the National Guard on the day. And he very sadly passed away recently. And he was one of the 9 kids who got shot. Right. Yeah, I wanted to tell this story. And like I say, it's a court case. We were looking for another production to do online, and we've got Christmas Carol lined up for Christmas if we're still not able to get on the stage at that time, with Trump as Scrooge. Right. So that's going to be fun. I've been writing bits of that at the minute. But before that, we're going to do 13 Seconds in Kent State, because it was 67 bullets that they fired in 13 seconds.
Yep. And
these 13 seconds were the most important bit. And it's really the civil trial, but it's the civil trial, but it's also told. The story is partly told through the voices of the 4 students who were killed.
Right.
So I'm rewriting that at the minute. We've just done a table read of the original script, slightly elongated, and we start casting it on the week of the 15th of February. Very interested. We've got a lot of people coming, but I'm interested in seeing more male actors aged between 18 to 35, because I think the cast is going to be about 50 people. It's quite big.
Wow.
Yeah, well, our last online production had a cast of 45.
Yeah.
I think this one's going to be at least 50. I'm trying to cut the number of roles down, but we'll probably have 1 or 2 actors playing more than 1 role, but I don't want too much of that going on.
Sure.
Because you're very limited in terms of what you can do on Zoom and visual identity and everything, and I don't want the audience to get confused.
Yeah. And you're going to be live streaming it, obviously, and then show it, I guess, after, if people want to catch it, they can catch it.
It's going to be a live stream via YouTube.
Yeah.
And you sort of think of it, there isn't a term for this yet, but I think of it as a radio play where you can see the actors.
Yeah.
And we'll use some visual elements as well. We're going to use photographs and things to try and take people back there.
Are you doing it as like a mini series or as a one thing then? Or is it
no, it's 5 parts. It's going to be broadcasting on Sunday nights. The first one's going to be on the 11th of April.
Yep.
And we're going to do the last one either on May 4th itself, which is a Tuesday, or the Sunday before that, which is the 2nd of May. We may do like a Q&A thing on the 4th. I'm not sure. It's the 51st anniversary of Kent State this year. Right. As you can imagine, everything for the 50th was cancelled. So, so that's the project. I mean, again, we don't have a budget. So, and when we did the trailer for Paratrooper, we had a bit of money. All the actors got paid. When we did a trailer for Pegasus with the development money, all the actors got paid. And I just need to say this now: actors absolutely should be paid for their work, just as writers and directors should be paid for the work that we do.
Agreed.
But as creatives, we always find ourselves often in these periods where I'm not doing anything. Who wants to do something? I'm going to do something. Who wants to do something?
Yep. This
is what I'm going to do. This is what it's about. I'm going to try and keep the commitment small, but I think it'll be good fun, and I think it'll, I don't like doing stuff if it's not worth doing, and I I'm very passionate about democracy. I'm not a big believer in politics, but I'm a big believer in educating people through the arts. Look at what happened with me with Hillsborough.
Sure.
I saw that Hillsborough movie. It impacted me emotionally. It impacted my social thinking. It made me want to learn more about Liverpool, and I'd never been to Liverpool. I didn't have any friends who were Scousers when I saw that film. I have loads now.
It's a commentary of the times in some ways, or of a time, but also sometimes we find that topics don't always go away. So to your point, like you said, with everything that's gone on recently in the States, but also in other parts of the world too.
Yeah.
Even though Kent State was many decades ago, there's certain things and sort of strains of that are as equally relevant now as before. So
yeah, I mean, we had a kind of acute, like a group discussion after the last episode. There was a lot of actors on the last episode, about 25, and I said, so what do people think? And everybody loved the script, but the most common comment was people were very angry, and they kept saying, I can't believe this was 1970. We're now in 2020. We're 50 years on, and it feels like nothing's changed. It feels like all the same divisions are there, and I think Black Lives Matter, which was a very important social thing, and which the far right and the right have now hijacked and are just calling it a socialist. They're kind of trying to tag it as like a communist socialist movement. It's not that at all. It's about human equality and just human respect between human beings. It's about human equality and treating people right. And it's awful. What happened to George Floyd was one of the worst things I'd ever seen. I can't watch that video again. I can't. And it made me want to vomit when I watched it. And to see a man begging for his life and another person in a position of power, a position of responsibility, whose primary job is to protect people. And that's why the National Guard were there as well on the day in Kent State. They were there to protect staff, and okay, they were there to make sure things didn't get out of hand and there weren't riots, but that wasn't happening. They were under no threat of life whatsoever, and they killed 4 kids. And yes, the kids have political beliefs and so on, but that's what happens when you're in your 20s and you're a teenager, or you're 20, 21. You're finding out who you are, and you.
But also, to your point, it wasn't just people protesting that got shot or hurt. It was passers-by, right? So
yeah, one of the girls, Sandra Shewer, who was killed, was just going to her class. William Schroeder as well was not a politically active guy. He just happened to stop by to see what was happening. Sure. Jeff Miller and Alison Krauss, who were the other 2 that were killed, were both in the anti-war movement, but the other 2 kids were not. And most of the kids that got injured weren't either.
It's always the way as well, though, right?
An M1 rifle is a very, very deadly weapon. What are you doing with that on a university campus? Firing it across a car park from a hill 200 meters away. What are you doing? And this is still happening now. When you look at the soldiers and police that were deployed against the Black Lives Matter protesters, and the troops they had in body armor and all the gas and stuff they were firing. Where was that when Trump's guys marched on Washington? Where was that? I mean, this is the kind of world we live in now.
Sure.
And it makes me angry. And I just thought, you know what? If we're going to do an online project, we're going to do a radio play, whatever. Okay, we're going to do a funny one later in the year. Let's do something that means something. Let's do something important.
On the 51st year anniversary as well, like you said, and so
51st.
Lots of extra poignancy and relevancy, and not everything has to be light and airy with art, like you said, with the Hillsborough piece. I think sometimes things that are hard hitting can still be inspirational and can still, be important. And it sounds like a good thing in the sense of how it would work within this medium too. You could probably do that really well and have a courtroom.
I hope so. I mean, it's going to have its limitations, and it will very much depend on the power of the performances of the actors, which is why.
But also, it's the story, like you said way back at the start of this. The story is key, and so it's the amalgamation of those 2 things. Listen, let's for people then. I guess 2 things. for actors or anybody, because you said you were looking for actors, if anybody
Yeah.
is interested or keen to get involved, how can they do that? What are you looking for, I guess, so you don't get the wrong
So
people?
I mean, there are some female roles available, but I just warn people now that there are not many.
Okay.
Because listen, I like writing roles for women. I like writing great female characters, as you will have seen from the front of my book.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, with Kent State, this is all real people, and this is the 70s. In fact, it's 1970 and then 1975. So all the lawyers, they're all male.
Sure.
They're all real people.
Sure.
The 9 kids that were injured, all men. Two of the ones that were killed were women. So obviously, with 2 female actresses playing those. And then we have the parents. So we have some mothers, but the regular outcasts, of which there are about 40, 65% of the outcasts are female actresses. Right. So they're already vying very heavily for those roles, but no roles have been cast yet, apart from one. And I've just sent you the link to the Outcast Creative Facebook page in the chat there.
So that'll be, I'll put that in the show notes in the description. So anybody who's listening to this before the 15th of February.
Yeah. So we're casting on the 16th, the 17th, the 18th, and the 19th. I think the 16th is already full. And it's a 2-hour session on Zoom. And you have to stay on for the whole session. And we'll just pick you to read different things. You get sent an audition document ahead of time. You can read it over. You're not going to get told what you're going to read. You've got to be prepared to read anything. The most important thing is that you can do an American accent. Most of the characters are from Ohio. There are a few from New York. I'd rather hear people's best American accent, whatever accent they can do, as long as it's not Southern, which is very distinctive, as we know.
Yep.
So, general kind of North American or Midwestern accent will be fine. And looking for that first and foremost, and then, the passion imbued into the roles, really.
Sure.
And that's what we're really looking for with people in Kent State. It's going to be rehearsing predominantly Monday and Tuesday evenings, between 6:30 and 9:30. We do the odd one on the weekend, and then I also do extra rehearsals anytime for people that want extra rehearsals. So that there's never any possibility of anybody feeling under-rehearsed. At the same time, we don't want the rehearsal period to be too big, because we don't want to, people are not getting paid. We're all doing this for free. It's a passion project. We can't charge money for this anyway, even if we were doing this as some kind of online pay a pound or whatever. You're
not comfortable with it for what it is.
I'm not comfortable with it because of the subject matter. Howard Ruffner, for example, is going to let us use his photographs completely for free. These are very famous photographs. I'm hoping to get use of John Philo's photograph, who took the Pulitzer Prize photo with the girl screaming above.
And it's more about you want people to just see it. And in some cases, sometimes it's not always about getting, the money in for the ticket. It's just about reach. And sometimes
I think it'll be worth, listen, and I get that we all want to do paid work, and you should, but if you want to get involved in a project that's a worthy project that I think people in the American industry will look at, because it's a very divisive subject in America. It's still a big thing and talked about over there. And I think people will watch it. And there's never been a drama about the court case before. Mm-hmm. There's a very old film about the shootings, but that's very limited as well in terms of what it offers. Right. This is about the court case. The 90% of the script is from the transcripts. So, you're going to get to hear it close. Obviously, it's been dramatized, but close to how it happened. And
people love a good court case. You've got the trial of Chicago 7.
You will not believe the shit that went on in this court case. And I mean, if you thought the trial of the Chicago 7 was bad, that has nothing on this case. The stuff that went on with the judge. I mean,
so for people who don't know, who want to tune in, because now you've piqued their interest and they want to watch it, who aren't actors, for non-actors here or even actors,
subscribe to the Outcast Creative channel.
Okay.
On
YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah. Just look up Outcast Creative. That's our channel.
Yep.
And that's also what you search for on Facebook if you want to follow us. And actors get in touch through Facebook. Somebody called Suzette will speak to you, and she'll book you in for casting. We've got limited spaces, as I said. I'm not going to limit it to males only, because I'd like to see a few more women, but we're mainly interested in male actors 18 to 55, 60. And we've got a variety of roles. We've got people that are in every episode, and we've got characters that are in one episode. So, if you don't want a big commitment, you can say you'd rather do a smaller role, and we can see what we've got. But we need to hear everybody read. And if you're keen, we'll try and find something for you. It is a big cast. And if it doesn't work out this time, once you've spoke to us, you're in touch with us.
Absolutely.
We also do an acting workshop every other week, which is an online acting course. Effectively, it's £10. We do a different theme and a different thing every week. We're doing monologues and leadership speeches this coming Monday, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 3 hours. So, it's £3.30 an hour. It's pretty cheap. Our acting drop-in course, when we did them face-to-face, was the same price, £10 for 3 hours. We try and keep it cheap because we know actors haven't got a lot of money.
Sure.
Especially now.
Absolutely.
And we do table reads every other week as well. And those are free. You can just bring yourselves for our attention. Let us know you're interested in doing a table read at some point. You'll be on our radar, and if you keep pestering us if we forget about you, and because we've got a few people still waiting to get on some, but we'll get you on one.
Great.
And they're a lot of fun, and we just read different scripts and we just have fun with them, and it's just a free environment where you can feel in a safe space online to try things
play
out.
and explore and all that good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And so Kent State finally is going to first episode, first live stream, April 4th? 11th.
Sunday, the 11th of April. I think it's going to go up at 8 p.m.
Great.
Yeah.
Amazing.
8 o'clock. When I'm back on a real set doing something else, I don't know. Diamonds in the Sky Book 2, which is called The Children of Babylon, will be out well before that. It will be out within the month, I think.
Amazing.
4 weeks. I don't know if we're going to do a big launch for it or something. We might do. If we do, you're definitely going to come on that. We might do like some sort of online launch party. Maybe we'll give away some free books or something. I don't know yet. I don't know what the budget is for that kind of thing.
Yeah, one step at a time.
No, but the Kindle version of this is also online as well. And I can give a free Kindle away, actually.
You could.
So I'll tell you what, for fun, before we finish,
go on.
I've got a link to a free Kindle. Why don't we do a quick free competition? And the first person that writes to Ashley's channel and subscribes to them, you've got to subscribe to Ashley's channel, please, as well. I've watched a few of your interviews in the before I did this one. Done some great stuff on there. Great stuff with casting directors. Actors.
Yeah, they've kept me busy.
Interviewed my casting director, Sharon Sorrentino, who forgot to mention me.
But we'll let her off because Sharon's lovely. We'll let her off.
She's my best friend of 25 years, so I've got no choice. But yeah, so let's do a question. First person to, I can tell you what, first person to send this message in. What was the date and the year of the Hillsborough football disaster?
Amazing. And you can subscribe, but also to answer, you can tweet, DM me on Instagram, YouTube comment, whatever, however you want to get to me, you can find a way. Doesn't matter the medium.
First person, and then I'll tell you what, let's make the first, 3 is my favorite number. Let's make the first 3 people. And we'll send you, you've got to have a Kindle though.
Yeah.
We'll send you a free link to read the first book of Diamonds.
Just in time for the second one dropping in a month or so. That's pretty perfect.
Exactly.
I love it. Great. Well, Lance, listen, now you've given people some extra incentive to subscribe and reach out. So thank you for the plug on that one. And
you can, you know what, you can put that at the front of the video and say we've got a special competition with an awesome free gift, and that'll make people watch.
Exactly, but you have to stick it out to the end. So for those of you that have stuck it out to the end, you got a freebie if you act now. So that's great.
Right.
Lance, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing all kinds of insights with me, but also with the guys that came on as well to pick your brains. And you're a busy man, but you know, it's that through line for me that came out with everyone that you spoke to today. It's you got to do it. You got to do it yourself. No one's going to come and do it for you.
Yeah, stay proactive.
Stay proactive.
That's really important. I know it's difficult, but can you imagine if this had happened pre-internet?
Exactly.
Imagine how difficult things would be. No Zoom, no digital. You're limited to your 4 channels of television. You know, you can't even go to the video shop because they're all shut.
So now, as creators, I mean, you know, make your film.
Don't moan because you're not going through the blitz.
There you go.
So just tough it out, guys. It's hard. I'm having a lot of trouble sleeping myself at the minute. I get it. It's a hard one. But, well, anyway, thanks for having me. I would love to come back. I think we could do a duo with me and Sharon on.
Oh, let's do it.
When we're casting something together next time with me, let's do that.
Absolutely.
Until then,
great.
Perfect timing because I think my wife needs to get online and
there you go.
do her thing. So let's not slow her call down.
Great, Lance. Thank you so much, man. Take care.
Brilliant. Take care.
Take it easy. Bye bye.